Okay, well, I got nothing. I got
What a
nothing.
start, Jason.
I know, there was
What
a strong,
start.
it was a really strong start. I felt like I had something, and then it left me during the countdown.
I feel that the angle needs to be reunited with Janko after, what, 4 weeks?
Yeah,
Maybe a
that's
little bit
true.
more than 4 weeks. That's probably where you should start.
He's had a vacation. He's looking
Forced vacation.
looking tan.
Yeah, blessing in disguise, they call it, Chad. You know, on one hand, obviously you'd like to work a major, but on the other hand, having that extra 3 weeks off in the summer is not too shabby, especially before the crazy heat comes on. Like today, it's 37 degrees in Belgrade. It's actually mental. The joke is it's 37 degrees where they measure it in the forest. In the city, it's actually like 40 or something.
Okay, it's getting warm.
But yeah, yeah, it's getting warm. I'm getting out of here for the weekend, like tomorrow. Gonna go back to
Going
Greece.
somewhere cooler or somewhere hotter?
Cooler. It's hard to go somewhere hotter, unless you
Well,
go.
you
You
Go to
could go to Texas.
It's pretty fucking hot there.
Texas is pretty fucking hot.
Degrees-wise, it wasn't hotter, but the fucking humidity, mate. You're outside and you're just sweating buckets constantly. That was the thing that was fucked over there all the time. And the problem is when you have hair like mine and you're out in the humidity, it just goes flat. They can't do what you want it to do. That's the biggest problem with the humidity. No one knows it.
Is your new look, Chad, due to spending a month in Texas?
No, yesterday I was like, you know what? Let's see how this goes. So I trimmed down the sides and left the stash. And then today I was like, actually, let's trim down the sides even more and make it prominent, and then see how long it takes for someone to say something. And apparently not very long. So you know, it's just maybe for the break. We'll see how it sits. We'll see how it looks for the next 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, because it's going to go damn quick.
Yeah, fuck. That's sad to think about. It is gonna go really quick. It is just gonna fly by. Fuck me.
What have you been up to though, Janko? What have you been doing?
Nothing too crazy. I mean, outside of like going for that vacation, that was doing stage 1 and stage 2 pretty much. I think I got back home on the first day of stage 3, and then just trying to keep up a little bit. You know, went on the No Majors Club with Richard a few times just to shoot the shit. Not much game watching going on there though. So
It's like an extended podcast.
yeah, exactly. Especially when Anders comes on the No Majors Club with someone who's been at the major. That's always fun. But yeah, then the get into the crazy topics and the crazy discussions. But yeah, I don't have anything super exciting for you, Chad. I just sort of, you know how it is when you
Just
don't
hung
have
out
to
in
work
Greece
and
with the
travel.
family.
Yeah, you just like chill, see some friends, go to some, you know, spots that you like, have some good food, just slow it down a little bit, because it's been, you know, April and May, because I knew I wasn't going to do the majors, why, you know, I took on some extra work and had some crazy travel, so it was nice to just not have to go anywhere, do anything too crazy for a while.
Bit more full on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, trying to add some stuff to the boot camp, some different sort of offers for people who are looking for a different sort of a setup. So hopefully that will be, I think that should be up and running soon. I think the Flag Quest boys might be the first ones to give it a go. So hopefully everything goes smooth for them as well.
Shit.
Yeah.
What's going to be important for like those boys out of the break, right? Because they've got the points now. You got to capitalize on that ASAP. This is the thing, right? We're going to get into the Counter-Strike really quickly, I imagine.
Yeah.
Actually, hold up, Jason.
Why
Just
did you
gotta say?
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks to Jason. You know, sometimes you got to thank people for things. I got to say thanks to Jason. He did a lot over these last couple of weeks, Janko. He looked after me and Alex. We stayed in his house. We had a good time.
Oh yeah, how was that? Did you already talk about that in another episode?
Probably briefly. I don't know, like in terms of in what detail we would have spoken about it. But yeah, so between Dallas and then Austin, we went to Jason. So we stayed there for, I think it was like 2 nights, and then we went to Grand Haven and we stayed there for another 3 nights. And then we went back to Jason's for another night before we all flew to Austin together. But it was nice. It was nice to get a slice of Jason's life and see what it's all about. He's very good in the kitchen, Janko. Great with his hands, molding those meatballs. You never seen anybody hold meatballs just like Jason has.
I don't know. I
Just
think
rolling them up.
he's really good at slicing those oranges for the old fashions. You know, that's That's the experience I got.
Good
But
with a knife.
Do you know now, Chad, like what I meant when I said like Grand Rapids is like what you get from the movies, like from the 90s movies about the U.S.
Oh, yes. Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
The neighborhood, the community.
It's
like-
very stereotypical suburb at points.
Yeah, you know, that's the first. I felt I was like getting cheated. I was getting scammed, you know, with my experience in the U.S. up until I went to Grand Rapids. But that's why I said it's like kind of I could live there. I couldn't live in like L.A. or New York right now. That's too crazy for me.
Well, we always tend to go to places that are a bit more like touristy, right? Like in that sense, or more like city-based. And then you go to where Jason is, and it's definitely more suburbia, right? And that I guess plays into what you're saying, which I think it's kind of silly that because my view was similar to yours, Janko, in the sense of like when we've been to the States, I've gone, oh, what the fuck is this? Like, you know, it just feels like a weird place. And then when I lived in the States, I was living in Vegas and I was living out of a hotel. So my general view of the US, it was not one that represents Jason's life. So going there and getting to see it was nice. Very nice backyard, lots of wildlife out there.
Turkeys,
you know, he's got it all
deer,
going. And
possum.
he does, you know, he is really the man you think he is, right? The way that people see him is the way he is. Doing a lot for the kid. So, yeah, it was good to be there. And then he organized PCs for us for the entire duration. So that was very good too. Yes, well, because Blast traditionally don't give PCs. And in the lead up, they said something. This was after we'd already organized it, like, oh, we may be able to get you some after like the 6th. And then they did, like Hugo and I think Connor used them. But Jason had made sure that me, Alex, Harry, and himself had PCs. So we were playing, you know, Prems the entire time. Got us up to 30K. It's just nice because when you're in that one location for 3 weeks, you can't be going out socializing all the time. Otherwise, you fucking, you know, it's
Especially
too much.
you.
I did a little bit of socializing, didn't I, Jason?
You did. You were quite a social butterfly.
I wouldn't go
as relative to the standard chat experience, I would say. Relative to the standard chat experience.
The fans have such like a warped perception of me. Like one night I was walking through the hotel and this guy comes up to me, shout out to this bloke, and he goes, man, you and Machine look like you two know how to have a good time. Where are people going out to get fucked up tonight? And I'm like, bro, just because I got messy hair doesn't mean I know, like, I'm not that type of guy. You know, you've got me wrong.
Definitely Alex's fuckboy clothes that brought him to you for that kind of a comment. And then you in all black as well probably look like you were ready to hit the club as also.
I look like I'm ready to work on the door. I don't think I look like I'm gonna fucking, you know, be in there getting cranked.
Yeah, you're not the captain of the bottle experience, but you're in there making sure the vibe is right.
Chad, you're not working no doors with hair like that. I'll tell you that. You're not.
What do you mean,
you're
man?
not intimidating anyone with that shit.
What about the stash?
The
You
stash
might be the DJ.
the stash does help the situation, but you know, if you wanna know how much stash does for a bouncer, I mean, just watch Roadhouse, the original.
Yes, that's true.
With old Sam
Yeah.
Elliott.
But just wanted to get a quick thank you out there to Jason.
You're welcome.
You know. So we gotta let the people know. But getting home, I don't know. I guess Jason, you didn't have to really change times on that much. Probably 2 hours different for you.
1 hour different, yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was like the travel just dragged, man. It was such like, even though it was only, what's the first flight, like 10 or 11 hours. That was from Austin to Frankfurt. And then the 5-hour layover in Frankfurt Airport. Shout out to Frankfurt Airport for being a shit airport.
what?
And then
It is, but you don't have status.
Yeah, well, yeah. We'll get there one day.
It's only so many things you can control in life, Janko, and airline status is apparently not one of them.
It's not one of them. Yeah. And then the flight home, it just felt like it took forever. So, but the last 48 hours, I've been in and out of like just this fucked up state of am I
Jet
awake,
lag,
am
napping.
I asleep? Yeah. Yesterday I napped like 3 times, and then I slept proper last night, so it's all good. You know, it's all good in the hood. Everything kind of worked out.
Yeah.
But where do we? Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, since you guys worked at the major, and I was like just experienced it as a viewer a little bit, like just give some of the impressions or some of the stuff that you know, I noticed. I think the show was really good. It was produced really well. I mean, that's Blast's strong suit. I really liked how early they started the show on the playoff days. It's something that we've been trying to push for some events and some other shows for a while now, because I feel with the amount of people that are involved too, or some of the massive events like Cologne, first and foremost, but then also Katowice, soon to be Krakow. I think there's definitely enough people there and enough happening where you can do it well and make it look good. So that was nice to see that they've actually let people have plenty of time to sort of break down the storylines, introduce it, the different settings. I like the players walking. I don't care that it was a red carpet, but you know that
It was a cool touch.
there was crowd there, so it makes it for a better. It looks better when you do interviews there, right? Like it's more lively with people being around. Obviously, you guys had to deal with all the signs. That's always risky, but I guess they banned people from using them after, or
They kept a pretty clean ship when it came to signs. I mean, most of them were fine. Obviously, there was a few I think that had to get removed, but nothing too crazy. But I mean, that's the same in any arena, right? Like someone always makes that sign that just crosses the line a little bit too much. But yeah, I think they did a good job with that. I mean, your point about the desk segments being like actually significant was awesome. It was weird because like
It's different from the groups for sure.
Yeah, well, the group thing was its own. Like they had the Redzone on that day one that they kind of pulled out on when they realized the amount of work it put on literally everyone. For the analysts to be there for like literally like 6 hours across their shift, talking constantly with no breaks, and then production having to do the same thing. I think they bailed out of that real quick.
To do that, it kind of needs to be a larger group than just 3 people. And and the thing is as well, only having 2 other streams going at once, it's a very big undertaking. It feels like there's not enough happening.
There's not enough content to do a true Redzone.
definitely.
Yes. But I think the idea, right, like if it was maybe not constant, you weren't expected to be on for a whole series, but there'd be like different chunks so they could jump between different things so you guys could have a bit of time off between games. It's something that could work. And I think if like the major format gets expanded to be in best of 3s in the future, and we don't have to worry about the best of 1s or whatever, then maybe there might need to be more games running simultaneously. But it also needs to be finger on the pulse. You guys all need to have laptops. Everybody needs to be having a look at what's going on Reddit, on Twitter, pulling everything in. Oh, check this meme out. Check this stat out. This guy broke this. This guy did this. It needs to be constantly pulling things while getting fed stuff from EVS. But they did it for one day and they didn't do it anymore. So one day was better than no days, or no days was better than one day. I don't know.
No, I think they made the right call at the end of the day. Like, I mean, I think I'll put it this way. I think they made the right call to fix the situation of making the wrong call, which is I think the Redzone is like kind of a cool idea that can be explored more, but its first jump into the public should not be the major.
This is the thing with TOs, isn't it? We do new HUDs and new formats during the major because some guy fucking pushes for it. It's like, why are we doing it during the major? Can't we test it during a regular event?
This is the big world championship. Let's get all the cool shit
surprise
out there.
reveal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then it fucks everything up.
But the problem is, like, you can't actually test the Redzone at any other event on the Blast circuit because there's not enough games played at any other event to actually test it.
They don't do B streams. Yeah.
Right. So it's like you can't do it at Blast Rivals, not enough games. Even Blast Bounty is the one you'd want to do it on, but I think maybe only for the online section because I would assume you have more games going on rapid fire at one. I don't know.
I don't even think that's true. I think they're all played all just single stream.
I don't necessarily know where else you would test it, but certainly it should have been ironed out ahead of time in advance.
I'll tell you where. Not a Blast event.
Yeah.
Like, you'd have to try it somewhere else, right? Like
format,
it just doesn't work.
But I think when they went back to like the original kind of like standard style desk, like the one thing that Janko's pointing out is like it was so nice having like, especially on the arena days, we had like a 1 hour pre-show. You know, we had a chance to like talk about all the storylines for the day, set up like the previous storylines from the previous stage of the tournament, and like and even on the last day, we had like a 15-minute segment where we just focused on like what constitutes a Counter-Strike era. So like having like 15-minute block of just being able to take a big picture concept, and then like as the show gets deeper and deeper, you narrow the focus to the games. That was really nice in the pre-show, having that much time.
Yeah, it was really cool. What else was I going? Yeah, I think Redzone is shit. You need to have as someone who watches Redzone, you know, emphatically every Sunday. I mean, you know, they have a thing called the Octo Box. Like at some point there's like 8 games, you know, but usually it's just how many
8 games.
Yeah, because you know that's what at the start. Because in the early window it can be 8 games, and then later window has fewer games. But for example, in the later window, when you have 3 or 4 games, sometimes there's really nothing to show because it's like a time, you know, it's a break in one game. In the other game, they're like at midfield, so not in the red zone. Red zone is the last 20 yards before the end zone. So where most of the action happens, where there's a higher chance of points being scored. And then the third game might be, you know, whatever. Maybe it's a blowout. Maybe there's also not much interesting happening there. So it gets boring in that, like, Red Zone is all about, there's so much action, so we're just cutting from these games that are in the red zone. That's where the name comes from. And then they have quick rewinds, and if they don't catch it live, but usually you just catch it. You just see it maybe 30 seconds later after the live game because they're showing you something else. And why it's exciting, we talk about this needs to be more analysts and stuff. This is one guy doing this for the whole day on Sunday. Yeah, and he's a G, Scott Hansen. Wow. He's just going. He's just hosting it, kind of throwing from one thing to the other, and sometimes he sprinkles in a little bit of commentary, because when they switch to the game, it's the duo that's casting the game. They just let it play out, right? And then he sort of just maybe reacts to it a little bit. He doesn't do any super breakdowns or analysis. He just talks a little bit about the big picture stuff and what's going on and what this means for their division and playoff chances or whatever.
What he does do, because he's a fucking freak show and also a legend, is he organizes his entire day and shift of eating and drinking so that he never has to take a bathroom break.
Jesus.
He has the amount of liquid timed out to where he never actually has to get up from the desk throughout the entire red zone. It's fucking sick. Kind of cool.
That's wild.
So red zone is awesome as a concept like that. Why? Because you also have games that you don't really care about, or they're shittier games, but maybe something cool happens that you like to see. So I think if Valve wants to do a 32 team major and then they're all playing at the same time, and maybe we have 4 groups of 8, or I don't know, 8 groups of 4, which seems highly unlikely, but in that sort of a scenario where we have four games going on at the same time, maybe at that point it would be enough. And like one of you two said, you show just the reset rounds, the pistol round, something where something where a big moment happens, a reset or a big clutch,
or you
you
switch into a fucking post plant or a bomb site takeover.
I don't think there's not a production crew in Counter-Strike that could pull that off at the moment. Having enough people, enough machines and EVS operators to look at 4 games at the same time, and being able to cut packages and put it all into the mainstream.
Not with the budgets the way they are.
Honestly, if Blast, PGL, and ESL combined to do this broadcast, I think then maybe they would have enough manpower, and that would be also maybe.
I want to, with the things we've talked about right now, there's a couple things. So I think Martin, the guy who freelances for Blasters, the producer, is the best in the game. But I think it also goes deeper than that, because everybody in the production room for Blast likes Counter-Strike or plays Counter-Strike. So I think one of the keys to his team, or the people that they have there, is the actual enjoyment of the game. So I think that's really, really strong. But so shout out to Martin one time, whether he curates that team or he's definitely
shout out to NiKo as well. His
yeah.
Miggle. I don't know what the weird Danish name.
Danish name. Yeah. He'll know. Let's go. I would.
It sounds like
Mikkel,
that. Yeah.
Because
Mikkel,
it feels.
It's with 2 Ks, but I'm pretty sure that I'm pretty sure the G has a nice appearance in there somewhere. I just never know where, because it's Danish.
That's all right. We can't pronounce player names, so we'll struggle with producers too.
We're on brand, yeah.
But shout out to them. One thing that you're talking about the type of desk. So the one that I'm bitter about this, because the 3 of us I know have been so vocal to ESL about this for the last fucking 5 years. Yeah. Obviously not the last 5 because of the pandemic, but to do with having a desk in the space where the people are on the concourse, right, to give the vibe of what's going on to the viewer at home. And we've been talking about that for so long, and the closest thing they could get to is giving you guys a couple of chairs in a place removed from the venue in Katowice, and then even then I think the next time you didn't even have chairs and you're just standing there, and there's a guy putting a fucking chip packet in the screen and you're having to fight him, Janko. So, I'm so bitter about that, because you know what's going to happen. They're going to see it at ESL and they're going to go, man,
why aren't we
sick.
doing this?
We got to do that. And I'm just like, man, just listen to us. Stop holding us at arm's length and treating us like the enemy. And maybe, we could have a couple of good ideas, but we're always fighting this thing. Why are we always fighting them, Jason?
I don't know. They gave us an EVS camera and some microphones at Dallas so we could walk around. That was kind of cool.
Small steps,
that's right.
baby steps, baby
that
steps.
Was pretty
but
good.
I think it was easy because the pitch
but
was...
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just college game day is basically the vibe of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't necessarily know it as much at the time. I know it more now. You don't know it, Chad, but it's just college football in the U.S. and they do this maybe now people know more about it because of Pat McAfee and he's involved in it and he has a big following. But it just
Isn't he the anti-cheat guy? I mean, not anti-cheat, antivirus.
no, that's Aaron Rodgers. I think that you're.
No,
No,
no, he's talking about the
he's
actual
talking about
McAfee, John McAfee, the
Right.
actual crazy
yeah,
motherfucker.
I'm sorry, I didn't pick up on that. But yeah, so that was just tapping into the people are there in the line waiting to get in, get them excited for it too. Maybe you'll have people there who don't even have a ticket who just want to be a part of the show a little bit. Maybe there's a viewing party outside or anything along those lines, and just do it that way. I even said, like, for some of that stuff, you guys have two big events, right? Katowice and Cologne. Okay, now it's going to be in Krakow, and your main office is in Cologne, and you have a studio in Katowice. What if, listen to this crazy idea, right?
Here we go.
You built a really cool desk, and you just keep it in Cologne, and then you just have to truck it once a year to Poland for this other event.
Let's not
You
get
don't
too crazy,
you don't need to
Janko.
fly it to all these smaller IEMs, right? That's the difference between the championship level event and just the regular IEM or God forbid Pro League, right? They all have different sort of stages, different vibes, different stakes and whatnot. So you could roll out this desk only for these two events. It wouldn't cost you much to move it around. It doesn't have to cost you a ton to build it even, but it could look really cool and add to the whole show.
Yeah, I think there's that. I think the other issue too is at some point you just have to be motivated, like Chad said, and actually put time in to do it, right? There's no value in having that desk moving around to event and having it in the crowd and coming up with this cool place to put it if you're not going to give the desk time to actually talk. That's the other side of the coin. Is for a 15-minute desk segment, that's worthless. If you're going to do 45 minutes to an hour pre-show leading into it, great. But you have to put some value on the desk first.
We're going a little bit everywhere.
Into the
We're
weeds?
inside NBA right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
the
inside
weeds, yeah.
baseball.
I know, but it's there was a guy who asked in the Discord, do you agree that maybe the pool for analysts and the desk is like weaker than it's ever been in a way, and I can see where people are coming from when you talk about going 10 years back, right? And you look at some of the early desks and the people who were on it. I mean, you can
Duncan and
you can hate Thorin all you want, but Duncan on a desk is incredible, right? Especially because you look at desks now, most of the guys who are there are either ex-pros or guys whose strength coming up, like myself even, has been talking about the minutia of the game, the details of the game. Duncan is a guy who he's the complete opposite. It's the storylines, the banter, the history, and ever since we've only had guys sort of realize, like you, Chad, at first, and maybe me as well, Jason, whenever he comes on and does it, it's like because whoever you're working with, like they probably just even want to talk about the game, and that's the thing that they can do the best. Then you sort of have to take on that role or trying to be a little bit more bantery, a little bit more edgy.
To be the glue guy.
Yeah, exactly, and do all this stuff. But it's not the same in a way. I'm not saying it's bad or that we do a terrible job at it, but I think there's only one Thorin in that sense. And even Chad, you were on the desk. Jason, you were at the desk. Well, you're always on the desk and always a caster, so I guess that's nice. There was Sean Gares, even Lurpis for a while, like just guys who have kind of big personalities and know how to do broadcasting. So it's been, oh, look who it is.
Yeah.
Hello,
There's
Andy.
been a couple of moments recently. So there was one on a podcast we did just the other day where Jane called and he answered, and it was like this 30 seconds of sweetness, and we're getting it again right now. So yeah, he does derail the conversation with his family more these days. Than ever
she
before.
couldn't have picked a better time, as I'm going full toxic talking about desks in Counter-Strike in 2025.
Yeah, she's saving the vibe right now.
Just saving the vibe. All right, never mind. It's never been better. Really
We
enjoyed
love
it.
that.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, let's just keep getting better every day. Try to do a
everyone's
better
gonna
job.
keep trying.
Yeah,
Everyone's gonna keep doing their best.
yeah.
Yeah. Jason will keep coming.
Yeah.
Wait, is he? He might get. We might have him. He's coming back. He's coming back. We've got him. He's back on the leash.
Sorry, the little
Welcome
one
back,
wants to say,
Jason.
wanted to say bye before daycare.
No, that's very sweet. No, we were just saying, like, Janko was saying how everything's great in the world and how it keeps revolving. And
that sounds like
he
Janko.
really loved your contributions as an analyst throughout the major, and
Thank
hopes that
you.
you're going to do more of it.
All positive stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty much it. That was the gist of it.
I don't know where you ended with things. I would say the one thing that like I think doing the desk at this event made me feel a little bit happier about the modern analyst desk, because I think I'm with you. It got a lot. It's over the years it's kind of gotten a little bit stale and boring because we're not changing a whole lot. But
A lot.
man, I mean having time helps so much. You know, like honestly, like even guys like I wouldn't normally put Pimp in the banter category, but you give him some time and you give him like an instigator on the desk and he can get involved in some funny banter, and like all the guys get, like, I mean, more than anything, it's just time to like be able to talk through the show elements that are created for every segment and then be able to just kind of riff off them, you know, like you're going to take you 5-6 minutes to get through graphics and talk through whatever people wanted to grab for the segment, and then you can have some fun with it. And without that time, it's hard to kind of break into the banter zone.
Yeah, exactly.
As I like to call it.
And Andy did show up at a moment where I was like hitting the rock bottom of the point, but I was going to end with, it feels like maybe that's the reason why TOs started cutting some of these segments short, because they didn't feel maybe they were as valuable or they weren't getting as much juice out of it as they would like. But then that's, what's the term for it? Shit. I can't remember, but in a sense of that's what even made it worse then, because once you cut the time, well, then there's really little that the talent can do in terms of being entertaining and showcasing, what is it that they're able to do when you just make it, first you make it short, and then you fill it so much with assets and segments and interviews and content and everything, is like you don't get to really just go back and forth and dig into a topic and challenge an opinion, right? Because there's always the next thing, or we're out of time, we have to go to whatever.
But that's why, like, when we came up with all the brainstorming that they just stole and said were all their ideas that they came up with at the same time, right? Like, that's why we kind of changed the framing of things to have people who were the presenters, which are like your Freyas or your Traces of the world, who could just give the information to the viewer, right? And then the whole point of like having the pundits, so the people who were meant to have a level of nuance and to have the conversation were meant to be broken up from that, because there's no point having Janko on a desk talking you through how a bracket went. Freya or Trace can do that. They can say this team beat this team and it was 2-0, and this team beat this team and now they qualified. And then Janko can come on and actually have the conversation that's meant to be had, right? But that's the thing, like there's a lot of stuff with broadcast from the people who are coming up with the ideas of how things are meant to go, don't actually understand what gets the thing to being entertaining. And the biggest thing that I would say is it's the personalities that get put together that can make the thing entertaining or not. And that's one thing that I think has been a problem with curating this over the last couple of years, is there either hasn't been the right personalities to put together, or the people who are making the decisions on the personalities don't actually know what they're doing. They don't understand like how to get to the end result. And that's fine. Like, that's okay. The biggest problem comes is when we, put our hand out and we try and help, and then they don't let us help. That's the biggest problem. It's like that's the bit that sucks a lot, because then we do find ourselves in a situation where they're restricting time or cutting down the show, or moving in the direction which is they're thinking, oh, well, how do we maximize this time because this isn't working right now? It's like, well, just trust us. Like this is the thing with Pro League. And obviously we spoke about it at the start of the year, right, about how we were going to step back and we weren't going to have as much to do with the show because we were doing a lot outside of the traditional purview of our work, and we weren't being compensated for it. And we had 4 seasons where we did the work and we showed what we were able to bring. And Pro League's just full entertainment, right? And entertainment from the perspective of skits and silly and that type of angle, right? Like less hardcore CS. But the angle that I always wanted to go with Pro League was that plus Counter-Strike education. We just never got the Counter-Strike education side sorted. But so we pulled back from doing that because it was we said, okay, well, do you see value in it? They said yes. And then they go, well, we can't pay you for it. And we go, okay, that's fine. Like, you see the value, but you don't want to pay for it. That's fair enough. I'm sure there's some other compromises we could have come to, but this is, again, getting like a inside baseball type conversation on the nuances of the people who hire us and how much we get paid and the budgetary stuff and all of that. Like, there is an end result where everybody can be happy and we can put something out there that the people at home are going to enjoy. It just, we're not there. We're not there yet. And I don't know if we'll ever be there.
Not there yet.
It's true. We're not going anywhere anytime soon, so that's all right. Maybe we'll get there one day.
The funny thing is as well, for all of we talk about time, right? So we are just willing to, let's say, be on camera for 20 minutes longer, right?
Sure.
Like, what's the problem here? For you, where's the downside for them to giving us more time? There's probably something involved with the metrics and how many viewers are there at the start of the show, and I don't know, blah blah blah. There's probably something there, but it just feels kind of crazy. We're like, we are willing to do more work for it to be easier for us, and that we could do a better job. No.
Yeah, it's gone an unfortunate route. I don't think, at least as far as the ESL events are going, it's going to get better anytime soon. So that's just something that we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, hey, should we get?
Hey,
should we leave the negatives behind?
Yeah, I was just going to circle back to the blast
It was
thing
a great
because
major.
Jason's fucking lagging, man.
It seems like his kid took the internet with her.
Took the internet with it, yeah.
But
Shit.
Not like he's the host or anything.
yeah, but I was going to say one thing that I did strongly dislike about the show and the desk is this thing where analyst duo starts does the pre-game and then the other two do the post-game, right? Like I always hated that shit when you mix
mean
and match.
2 at the desk and then 2 down by the stage to do like the final thoughts is the way they organized it. I know you mean during the playoffs?
Yeah.
Yeah, like 2 during the desk doing the pre-show, and then there's another duo down by the stage to do like the final thoughts heading into the next map. So like one duo breaks down the game that was played, one duo sets up the next map that's going to be played, that duo then moves to break down the map that they introduced, and the other duo switches to the final thoughts for the next. I know what you mean.
Yeah, but it's still like, okay, you do get to talk about the map before and after it happens. Like that makes it less bad because in a different run of show it would be different people doing that. So I would pre-phase the game and then you would be out there talking about it after. So there's no continuity of the narrative or the storyline or you being able to make your points or whatnot. But it's a couple of things. First of all, you have to be there for the whole day, for like 4 days in a row, which does get, after having to do 3 stages already, gets a little bit grueling. And at the stage of the tournament where most eyes are going to be on it and you want to do your best work is like when you're going to have the least amount of energy. But the other thing is just for the continuity of the storylines or being able just to do the game. Like I always hated it. Having to do that, people have been talking about it, recently with the best of 5 finals and, mixing a match. And I'm like, listen, just pick whoever you want to do it. If it's not me on it, I don't need to do it just for the sake of saying I did the final or being in the final. I'd much rather have the same people there throughout the final so we can, maybe you made a point after map 1 and now we're going into map 4 and, we can get back to it and it could be an interesting discussion or we could do a callback to it or something. But then if that person isn't there and we have different people all the time, I mean, it's just it becomes a mess to me.
See, from my perspective, I didn't mind it. Like I actually, like in terms, I get what you're saying in terms of being able to button up your conversation points, but I think from a viewer perspective watching, I liked that there felt like there was a bit more happening and it was bouncing around a bit more, but it was just environment that changed, and sure, a couple of people changed, but that kept it a little bit fresher. And I also think having more people within the days like that, the way that they balanced it, I didn't hate it. Like I didn't sit there and go, this feels tough. Like when you have 5 people, because there was sometimes, Jason, right, you did 4 analysts with Freya on the desk, right?
Yep.
That was
can
also
get tough.
crazy.
But that can get tough if you're not given ample time, right? If you have half an hour to have a conversation, it's kind of just like an extended podcast format. That really depends on what topics you're discussing and how you can get into them. But yeah, like I think that the idea of having more people in for those days, because it's a major, right? I think it's all right. Like covering all the matches every day. I think the way that they bounced around, and there's always an hour to fill between the finish of the hour minimum between the finish of the first series and then into the next, and they don't have as much content, right, as what we would have at an ESL event that we would do. That's one thing that Blast were definitely trying to do at the major, but their content team, they don't have Frank, right, and they don't have Frank's the guy as far as content's concerned. So it's clearly saying that Blast, once upon a time, they had it well with sponsor integrations, but in terms of like skits and stuff, they've never been even close to what ESL's doing or that type of stuff. So they were definitely trying at the major, but yeah, I didn't hate it. And Jason, you obviously worked it. How did you feel?
I think the two things are, one, I'm shocked that a caster would be fine with the analyst doing more work. That's a crazy turn of events that I really didn't expect to see today. I mean,
sorry that your 5 minutes worth of talking, Jason, was too much for you to do all day while we sit for 45 minutes per map, Jason. I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry, man.
How many days off did you get in the playoffs? 2?
Yeah, but that means you got paid more days than I got paid. So I would gladly cast every day to get paid. So just a thing, everybody. Days you don't work, you don't get paid. Guess what? Analysts bitching and moaning about working more days, getting paid more days. Oh, that must suck. Boo-hoo.
Sorry, you still made more money at the event
with all
than
the
I did.
extra money
I bet you still made more money. No, but
hell.
I think it is exhausting. I mean, jokes aside, it was tiring, especially because in MR12 the maps can be so short. So like some of those segments, you'd be like, okay, I got to go back and like make some food, and then you'd go get some food, and you'd sit down and you'd look up and it'd be 9-1, and then you had to walk back to the desk at halftime. Those are small complaints. It wasn't really super big, but there was some exhausting elements to it. I guess my thing would be, I didn't mind it. I think it's kind of a cool concept. I guess it's one of those things where it gets into the nitty gritty where it's like, how much does the audience notice? Because I know the philosophy behind it was kind of like, for post-map segments after a game ends, they wanted the desk to be in the concourse, so you kind of remove the viewer from the competitive environment and like get a sense of like a little bit more chill, a little bit more like laid back and relaxed. And then as the map is coming back in to start the next map, you have it next to the stage, in the arena, in the environment, with the crowd, with the player shots and everything. So that's meant to kind of bring the viewer back into a match is about to go live, get ready for the intensity, get ready for the excitement.
Yeah.
So I guess, one of those things would be, how much does that emotion translate to the viewer? Does that kind of a philosophy and a strategy make sense? Does the viewer actually feel that kind of a sense when they watch those segments, that they're pulled out of the game and then kind of inserted back in right when we go live? And how much impact does that have on the viewing experience? So I mean, that'd be a question, I guess, for like YouTube chat and the Discord people, if they noticed that, if that gave that emotion over to them.
I think the other thing is how many people even notice this outside of us, right?
Yeah,
like, that's another thing.
Right. And that's always the conversation we have, right, with these TOs, is like, whenever we want to make a change, it's like, well, how much is this going to move the needle? How much impact is this truly going to have to the viewer? Like, we notice it. Does the viewer notice it? We know the thought process. Does the viewer actually get that thought process subtle enough to where it can impact them without them noticing too much?
But I think if we're going to do something either way, we should probably do something where, like, I know this sounds crazy, but where, like, where we think it's good. Right, because if if we're going to do something
we think
anyway,
it's good
and it's bad, then it's like, well, then why are we do it? Then I'm with your logic of like, kind of what's the point? But if we think what we're delivering is good, then you would hope that the viewer enjoys it as well. Like, at least that's like kind of this podcast, right? It's like with the conversations that we have, we're just talking. Hopefully, the people at home enjoy it. Like, we find out whether they do or they don't. They let us know in the comments. They vote very loudly.
Not shy about letting it know.
Like I said, in one of the episodes prior, screw the viewer. Like, they don't know what they want. Like, how do they know what they want? They didn't know they wanted all this shit before we started doing it, right? So it's up to us to sort of think of, hey, what would be the cool thing? And it's up to them to be surprised. If you're waiting for a Reddit thread about what you need to add to your broadcast, bro,
it's too late.
You're way behind. Like, fire everyone in that creative or / production room should be fired. Like, you're the ones who should be inventing new things and bringing it to the viewer, and they should be wowed by what you thought of and notice all these like small additions that you're bringing to your broadcast, that's sort of separating it from your competitors. But that would require having competent people to do.
It's not always easy to do, That's what we all
competent
strive
people
for.
Is the hardest part of anything.
We do strive
well, it's not. It needs to be correct but incomplete, Jason. So a C for you. Okay. You can sit back down.
Here we go.
Competent people in positions where they can make an impact. That's hard to find. There's competent people around, but they're not in the positions necessary to be able to make some of these decisions.
What did we think of them doing the quarterfinals? So the Thursday was Furia and Pain. That was the second game. And the first game was mouz and Spirit, but they were on opposite sides of the bracket. What did we think about that, gentlemen? Or should I say what I thought before I ask you what you think? Because I didn't like it.
I already know where you're going with it, so I'd like Janko to take a stab in the dark.
I mean, it's done so that, you don't get two
Janko
shit games on the
this.
same day. What?
I
Well,
don't
you
think
wouldn't have gotten 2 shit games on the same day. You would have had FaZe Mongolz.
Oh,
and
so
you would
FaZe
have
Mongolz
Fury of
is-
Pain.
So his problem, Janko, is that you have
Mal's got a whole extra day to prep for Vitality.
Yeah. You didn't have the same side of the bracket playing on the same day. So one of the teams got essentially an extra like 24 hours over the other squad to prepare for the series.
Yeah, that's shit. I even saw, I think Cyclone tweeted about it and said it.
It was in an interview. He
Or
said
is it-
something in an interview, yeah.
Yeah, that he mentioned it. That it's like not really cool that they get to have that, right?
Yep.
In a way. But there's going to be someone who's going to say, yeah, but then they had a day where they didn't play, and Vitality is going from playing to playing. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's a. I think preferably it shouldn't happen, but I don't think it's like this massive issue unless, let's say, Vitality is playing the second game on day one, and then on day two they're playing the early game, where it's really sort of minimizing their time to prepare and rest properly and everything, and sort of just adds to the stress unnecessarily with, oh, but they had a full extra day and they probably knew we were going, and then
I just feel like it shouldn't even come into the conversation, though.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know. I'd have to go back and look at majors that have come before, but I feel like I haven't been. That hasn't been the case before. I just feel like from the 2 best games were the opening games of the Thursday and the Friday, right? Like on paper, it was Na'Vi Vitality on the Friday first game, and it was mouz Spirit. mouz Spirit was the best game overall, and I understand why they did those as the first games. Normally, what would happen is those would be the second matches, but because of the time zone, they wanted to make sure they maximized European viewership. So I get all that. I just don't like it from the perspective of it's even a conversation point. Like, that's why I don't like the way that we have 3 separate stages in the major right now. That's why I'd prefer to have everybody start at the same time. Because I hate having to go into the next stage and be like, well, the stage 1 teams, they all know what the environment's like, and they've got, good wins there, so now they're going to run with that versus stage 2 teams, but they're fresh, they haven't had to show as many strategies. Like, I can say that literally for every stage, but it's like, why? Why do we? It doesn't need to be this way, does it? Like, can't we come up with a better solution? Does this have to be where we find ourselves? So
I mean, this is an extension of what we all talked about, where we fucking just hate tournament formats where teams just skip stages in general. It just kind of feels weird. I hate this stage skipping feature we have in Counter-Strike these days.
Yeah, I would love to see that get changed. I don't think it's going to get changed this year, right?
No.
And it's tough to see how it would get changed in the future as well. It would take TOs having to pitch some things to Valve. It would take us talking to Valve and coming up with different suggestions and talking about the whys, which we definitely did. Jason and I separately spent time talking to Valve over the course of the weekend. When you get in a position where there's only so many things that we can say, because we're not going to go out and say, oh, Valve told us this, right? Because we don't want to sully that relationship.
I've gone down that road before. I'm out. I don't want it anymore.
But there's things that we can say that aren't bad. Like, for example, I brought up the fact that I think that the TPA for majors should be on the public record, and they were like, that seems reasonable. That's the tournament participation agreement. Right, the thing that all the teams sign, right? And that's just from the angle of it should be part of public record, so it can be audited by the public, because nobody knows what's in that besides the teams, and the teams, because there's a non-disparagement clause in there, can't actually go out and say anything negative about it once they've signed it anyway. So it's that's something where the public could help by us on a podcast looking at it and going, oh, okay, well, that doesn't seem reasonable. Maybe someone should say something about that. But that would only be for majors, right? You wouldn't have to do that for regular tournaments, because at a regular tournament, the teams get to vote with their attendance. They don't have to go. It's you don't want to play? That's fine. You don't have to. And then people will be like, well, why aren't they playing? They go, well, they had this clause in there that meant that we had to give them our firstborn child, and we weren't okay with that. And it's oh, okay, no, that's fair.
Shocking,
you don't want to give them your firstborn child. I get that. That's cool. That's why you didn't attend Cologne or whatever, right? So I just think for the majors, it should be a public record. What other thing did I learn? This wasn't from the Valve devs. This was actually talking with somebody from Blast. Blast actually are the ones who came up with the idea for the in-game clips.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And that's really cool that I learned that, because I just thought Valve were the only ones that came up with in-game itemization ideas. Because I don't know about you guys, I've never seen a major pitch. I don't know what a major pitch from a TO looks like. I've got absolutely no idea. But to know that in the major pitch, a TO can pitch in-game itemization things is such a cool exploration of this whole idea now. So what can the brain ponder? And then you have to think in Valve ways, what would they want to encapsulate in their game? So this souvenir stuff they're going for this stage is all Blast's idea.
I wonder how much of it is the freedom for a TO to pitch those kinds of ideas, and how much of it was a perfect timing for Blast to pitch something as stickers were kind of losing their luster. You know, like a lot of the conversation has been that stickers weren't as impactful, weren't as impressive, so they might have been open to an idea like right out of the gate. They might have been open to that kind of coming in. So yeah, I don't know if that's something that every TO can do, that they'll add something new like with any kind of frequency, but this certainly seemed like it was like the perfect moment of opportunity to bring in a new, fresh idea with those little highlight clips.
But the bit that we can say is Blast's idea. Blast are the ones who have to come up with the clips, right? They have to generate the clips, and then they have to give them to Valve, and there'll be a bunch of them. I don't want to say the exact number. And then from that, like, they need to do it in like the Chinese version of the game or the world version of the game. It has to be in different video formats and different sizes and stuff, right? So those things I feel happy saying, because I learned that not from a Valve dev, but from an employee of Blast. So I think that's probably fine for me to say. But we'll edit out the bit Jason said, and maybe by the time this episode comes out, it'll be up. But I imagine
doubtful.
I imagine early next week is when they would probably be out. If I was taking a stab in the dark, because I think the time to turn around all the highlight videos for 7 different best of 3s, you need to have a certain amount of highlights per map. A bunch of the games went 3. So yeah, it would easily take a week. Like, it's not quick. So I just see some Reddit threads, people being like, why isn't it ready yet? It's like, well, there's a lot of work, and just cool your jets, everybody. It's coming. It's so's Christmas, but it's coming. So I think that'll be cool. Interesting to see how that kind of that pops off when they do at it. What else did we learn? I'm trying to think what we can say.
Yeah, well, now I'm a little bit nervous about what we can say.
That's all right. You can just edit out more whatever you say.
How about well, we did have some. We probably can't go too deep into everything here, but we did talk format about best of 3s versus best of 1s. I think they
and
talked
best
to
of
everyone.
5s did come in the conversation too.
I think they talked to everyone at the event about that. I think we got to a point where we walked in and they were just like, "Oh, what? You were going to fucking talk to us about best of 3s and best of 1s?" And it was like, well, not with this attitude anymore. Now that I see that everyone else has brought it up first thing, I guess I'll chill for a bit.
Yeah, my angle with that I thought was a pretty strong angle and hard to, because what I kind of did was I set up the conversation with, what is the major to you guys, and it's important to get them to give the framing of it, because then that's how I would tackle the conversation. And they said, like, this decides on the best Counter-Strike team in the world. And I said, okay, well, your entire system to qualify the teams to then decide the best Counter-Strike team in the world doesn't have any best of 1s, but the event that's meant to be the most important of the whole year does. It's like, why does that doesn't make any sense, right? Like, and best of 1s aren't in the tier 1 landscape anymore, right? Like, that's not the case. They do not play a role in the tier 1 landscape.
They ain't in the tier 2 anymore.
Right, but this is it. Like, the game has developed to a point where the upper echelons of the game, with the 10 tier 1 events that we had before the major, not a single one of them had any best of 1s. It was only best of 3s. So, like, my thing with a matchup like that is, obviously MR12 does come into the conversation too, but Counter-Strike is at a point where, sure, you're vetoing down to one map, which should in theory potentially be the third map you were going to play in the series anyway, of the middle ground, but that's not always how it works out. And I just think that a best of 3, like, we're talking about depth of map pool now. We're talking about, the veto playing an actual factor within the game. I think best of 3 is the minimum. The best of 5 final, the jury's still going to be out on that. Let's say that stage 1 had best of 1s, but stage 2 and stage 3 had best of 3s. Now, that's even a compromise that I'd be, happy with at certain points, because look at the teams in stage 1, right? Like, I understand LinVision made it all the way and Legacy made it all the way to stage 3, but otherwise, not many of the teams did. So I wouldn't put up too much resistance if the stage 1 teams had to play with best of 1s. I'd be like, all right, fine, whatever.
No, you're only saying that because you're sick of best of 1s, but you cannot compromise your own integrity, Chad. You hate it.
I can, and I will. I can, and I will.
You hate him for everyone. I would just, the way you do it is, well, you change the format too, which is what we would like the entire time, right? Instead of having these ridiculous stages. And the only reason you're fine with it is because these are lower tier teams and you don't really care how far they're going to go. They're definitely not going to go all the way anyway. So in the interest of cutting time and cutting cost and making sure we do get them for the later stages where you have the quote unquote better teams, the bigger names and whatnot, like, okay, let's do it this way. No, like, change it so that every team that's participating in it has to play under the same conditions. In a way, right? Like, I believe in that, and I think we should definitely skip having these different stages, and everyone should play. And sure, when you have a 32 team major, and if you did 4 groups of 8, let's say, the teams that are 8, 7, 6 in that group are not going to be very good, right? Like, so they're going to have to. They're basically fighting to get wins and get some points in the ranking, right? And the top 2 teams in the group should be pretty safe, but I mean, that's what makes it interesting. Maybe yes, maybe not. And then these teams that come from, it's the same thing when you watch a World Cup of any kind in any sports, right? I mean, let's say, even in basketball, which happened last year, you have teams like, I don't know, in our group, it was South Sudan, which, they have a basketball thing, but there's a lot of guys who grew up in the States and play in the States and whatnot. But then you're like, yeah, of course you're supposed to thrash them, but maybe they give you a hard time. They give you a close game. All of a sudden, there's a couple of names there that you remember from that team that maybe, one of them came and played for Partizan this season, right? Like, so even though these teams are not going to do much in terms of wins, maybe some individual players showcase their potential, right? Like, my point is, I guess, not every game or group or a format has to make it so that that all the games are competitive. Games are not all games in a world. If you want to have 32 teams and a world championship, not every game can be fucking competitive, because number 1 coming into the tournament is going to be a hell of a lot better than number 32, which doesn't even have to be the real one because of regional spots or whatever. So if Vitality plays meta sport, in a best of 3 in a group stage, yeah, it's going to be 13-2, 13-3, right? Most likely it's not going to be super entertaining, but that's the gap.
Well, I mean, without getting too much into the weeds, I think Valve seemed open to the conversation around BO3, BO5, BO1. They were certainly open to the conversation. I don't know if that means they're going to change their mind.
Well, nothing will change for this next major.
Yeah, but they were inquisitive
as far
about
as
the
that
topic.
Format.
They were inquisitive about the topic, which is positive. I don't know. It's hard because I think if you want to like draw examples to traditional sports, though the easy one to talk about best of ones would be the March Madness tournament. And all the intensity of moments that creates. If I wanted to play devil's advocate and advocate for the best of ones, it'd be look at the March Madness in traditional sports and how exciting that is, and how much interest it brings, and how much hype it brings, and how fun it is to watch a potential 15th seed taking on a 2 seed with a potential upset on the line. That's what gets the basketball scene in America fucking on their feet.
No, that gets, so for all the viewers out there, what he's talking about is the college championship. So yeah, give the fucking V-Play Academy League best of ones all the fuck you want, Jason, but stay the fuck away from my world championship. You don't see the NBA playoffs be best of ones, do you?
I think like the biggest thing
that doesn't change
adjust,
anything.
right?
The March Madness is like the biggest sporting event in the country across the year, like outside of the Super Bowl. Like outside of the Super Bowl, March Madness is the sporting event.
It's not. It's not. There's
I'm
NFL,
sorry, are you
and then there's
talking to me about American sports culture.
Yes.
Like March Madness is like the next biggest.
You underestimate the National Football League. Like
I said, okay, dude. All right. Aside from the Super Bowl, yeah, the National Football League has all the highest viewership on television. But in terms of interest across every platform and across everything, like sports betting increases like 100-fold, viewership increases for that tournament. Attendance is crazy at all the events across March. Like that captures the sport zeitgeist in America for an entire fucking month. I don't think anything else can do that the same way.
That is correct.
But this
also,
is
I don't want to get into the weeds here, but it's also in March. What do you don't have in March?
Okay, well now we're going to make qualifications to everything.
No,
like, okay.
no. I'm just saying it's like at that time, yeah, definitely,
sure,
because it's
no
also
NFL,
placed. Right. It's placed in a nice. It's also irrelevant time in the NBA, and it's away from the whole. I get it. Yeah, it's pretty. I'm not saying it's not huge. I'm saying it's pretty big. It's great. They do it in these like big ass stadiums where you can't even watch basketball properly. But yeah. That's why it's called madness.
We have here's the thing. Let's the counter to what I'm going to say is really simple. It's don't lose your games. It's a shit counter, right? So that's the counter to what I'm about to say. The bracket for the playoffs was shit because of the way the results happened in the best of ones. Now, mouz, they're a different conversation, right? Because obviously they turned it around 0-2 and then they were able to claw their way back. And they had to claw their way back into almost every single series they played throughout the major, which
they lost their
shows that
every
they
single
weren't
time, right?
What? Maybe.
Except Train versus Aurora. I
But
think.
either way, right? The
Aurora.
angle here being that they weren't on their best form, right? So there's a qualifier right there for why mouz were in a struggling spot. But like, you know, the opening game, I think if Vitality lose the opening map to Legacy, they don't lose the next two maps, and then they're not in that situation where they're a 3-1 team. And then maybe we have Vitality going through as a 3-0 team alongside a Spirit as a 3-0 team, and then the bracket is kind of settled in a little bit better. Right? The best of ones are there to like have the opening, and then the best of threes are the safety net. You either need to win one to show that you're not just best of one merchants to qualify to the next stage of play, or you need to avoid losing them, right, to not be eliminated for the tournament. So if you are a good team, you lost two best of ones, there's your safety net. But it's like the conversation I don't even think needs to begin. There's no point us even talking about best of ones because the rest of the tier 1 circuit doesn't have any of them. So why, again, for the world championship of the game, where it's meant to decide the best team of the entire season, would we have something that we don't have for the entire rest of the season before that? So in that point, in my mind, it shouldn't even be a talking point. They shouldn't exist anymore. And if we did something as simple, like Prof said that he suggested that we should do 2 16-team groups. And that's really quite simple in my mind because within 2 16-team groups, double elimination bracket, you can get 4 teams out and it can be well seeded, right? That can be well seeded for the playoffs. You don't need to play the lower bracket final and you don't. So, that's one extra game that you don't need. So what would that be? That'd be either 28 or 29 matches per bracket. Let's just say it's 56 matches over both groups. It's roughly 4.5 matches of best of threes a day over a 12-day period, and that 12-day period is how we won 3 stages before. So it's 6 days per group.
So
right?
it's 32 teams total, 2 16-team brackets. Just play all the way to the champion.
So you play out all the way upper bracket, and then you play the upper bracket grand final, upper bracket final, not the grand final, which would determine seed 1 and 2 going into the playoff bracket. You'd play out the lower bracket all the way until teams 3 and 4 have qualified. Then they play each other to determine who's going to be seed 3 and who's going to be seed 4 going into the playoff bracket, right? So you have all those games to determine your placement in the bracket for both of the groups. Then you have a well-seeded and well-structured. You have 2 first seeds, 2 second seeds, 2 third seeds, and then you just populate either side of the bracket like that, and you play a straight line single elimination into the final, right? And like I said, if you have roughly 4.5, it's like 4.666 recurring or whatever. So some days will have slightly more matches than other days.
56 games.
58 maybe. What would it be?
If it's 56, then it's exactly 14 days. I mean, for 4 best of threes a day, it's 56.
Well, at the moment we only run 12 days, right?
14. What?
At the moment we only run 12 days for the groups.
Yeah, but there was a couple of media days in there here. You could
something?
do just one break day in between the 2 groups, and it would be 15 days to get it all done, and then you just have the playoffs. 1 more break day and 4 more days, so 20 days with travel day.
You wouldn't want it to be any longer than it is now.
Yeah.
Yes, Jason.
Oh, I'm just saying we're about an hour in, and we still have to talk about the actual major and then some of the news out of the major. So I'm just saying maybe not in the weeds of the format talk. We could.
Yeah, but with the actual major, right? Like what are the big talking points, right? Obviously, Vitality winning. That's the biggest one. And then it just comes with like glazing. Like watch me glaze. You ready? You ready to hear the glaze? This is the second major for the organization.
I wanted to give Janko a chance to glaze.
Janko glaze.
Janko,
go glazing.
I said this is the.
Maybe he won't glaze.
No, it's the greatest.
Maybe he's out of glaze.
No, it's the greatest season in history of Counter-Strike. I believe that, everything, and I don't know, I hate it. Why do we have to fucking overdo everything? Like, nothing is good enough. But people are saying it's the perfect season. It is not the perfect season because they lost in the first tournament.
It's the near-perfect season.
If they won Blast as well, yes, then it is a perfect season because everything they've played, every tournament they won.
Yep.
They didn't win one tournament, so it's not the perfect season. Despite that, it's still the greatest season in the history of the game.
Who called it the perfect season?
Someone tweeted, some analyst tweeted it. I can't remember.
You don't even know his name. He can't be that important.
All right.
He probably deleted him from his brain as soon as he saw the tweet. He's like,
put
fuck this
someone
guy.
on the
He's out. Burn him down, Janko.
I can't look for it.
It was Kassad, wasn't it?
I said an analyst. No, it was Blair.
Okay, well, it wasn't a perfect season. It's a near perfect season.
And perfect in all caps. So not an undeniable error. It's not an error. But never mind. Maybe it's the starter one. We'll see. Star Wars.
That's
whatever.
that's where I eventually wanted to take this. Can we turn this glazing into something productive? Is it an era? Because it's not an era. Like you guys are on my, you guys are with me, right? It's not an era.
It's not an
Like,
era, man. It
you guys
cannot
didn't want
be
to
an
back
era.
me up with the simple thing, but come and back me up with the vitality thing. It's not an era, right?
It's not an era. Like, it could very well be a starter one, right? But let's say, I don't know, with the changes that are going to happen, and let's say Spirit makes some and all of this, and then all of a sudden these teams come into the next season like Vitality did in this one, and all of a sudden Vitality, I'm not saying they don't win anything anymore and they're not a contender. They're going to be very good no matter what. They'll still be the team to beat, but the dominance stops, right? And then what can you say? It's an era for half a year? No, you cannot. Like, it has to go on longer than that. And I'm not saying they need to keep winning everything and all that, but they need to win. You know, if they win a couple of big ones next season and 2-3 tournaments, you could still argue about what it is.
Bro, I feel like I've been taking crazy pills. Chad, do you want to go? Did you have something you want to?
No, you can say why you think you're taking crazy pills.
Like, why am I being gaslit by the entire world that this has to be an era after one season? Like, why is this a conversation where everyone's got this? Eras should be like the fucking hardest thing to get in all of. Like, eras should be held above majors. Like, you only get an era if like there is some extreme level of just like long-term dominance, and like long-term is like a year. It's 2 seasons. There's a reason why we don't say the year is split into 2 eras. It's split into 2 seasons. They had an incredible fucking season. The best season that any Counter-Strike team has ever had. It's not perfect. It's near perfect. It doesn't have to be an era out of the gate. I'm with Janko. Like, we're going to get to a point, like, if you're declaring this is an era, what happens in the second half of the year if they only win 1 trophy or if they win 0 trophies? Like, maybe Falcons comes in and just actually ends up just beating them in every single finals they play in. It's not completely outside of the realm of possibility. So can we just fucking wait? Can everyone chill? And I don't know if there's like some desire to be the guy. Like, this has like a very similar ring to it as the simple thing, where it's like there's like some desire to declare something as here. Like, my only assumption is that people want to be the guy who like declares it's the era or he's back, and like let everyone point at him and be like, oh, this guy was so prescient. And it's like, an era has to be a long period of time. It has to be at least a year.
I actually talked about this during Media Day in Dallas with Magisk. You know, I was asking him about Vitality, blah 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 blah, and you've had your time in Astralis and Vitality too. Where do you feel they stand compared to you guys? You know, and your dominance at the time. And he did say, I mean, I think they're far away from being able to be compared to us because we won 3 majors back to back. And that's it. That is like the main point of it. And of course, Vitality winning this one was huge. They sort of had to, and they did, and that makes it even a little bit more impressive than they did. But still, it has to be, you know, more majors, more some of these S-tier tournaments. Really, you know, Cologne again would be a repeat there would be very nice for them. But yeah, it has to be more tournaments of that magnitude, really, before you can talk about eras and whatnot. No one's going to hold it against them if they don't win, you know, Pro League, or if they don't win.
All right, hold up. All right. I've sat here and listened to you two for long enough here. Let's get involved, shall we? Because I respect your opinions, but I disagree. And I'm happy for you to have your opinions.
You're one of
and
them.
you can look at this laggy motherfucker trying to get involved in the conversation. He's like a fucking stop motion thing right now. I hope it shows up in the VOD. Like him moving around like a fucking
because it records
claymation
locally
figurine.
and then it's going to update
Like fucking
and then it's going to
Gumby
be
over
fine.
here.
Jesus Christ, go.
Well, I can't hear what you're
records
saying.
locally,
so-
and then it's going to update, and then it's going to be fine.
Oh dear. Okay, so let's get into this. Let's get into this, shall we? So how many Counter-Strike eras do you think there have been in Counter-Strike?
Well,
Okay, the
NIP
NIP one.
Fnatic.
Yep.
First and foremost, Fnatic, Astralis.
It depends on if
Do we
you want
count-
to.
Well, either the
I think LG's up for
Luminosity is the
debate.
same as Vitality. It's like
Okay, so if you're going to bring Luminosity in for the debate of era, then you've just you've lost all credibility. That's insane that you would bring them in for the conversation.
I don't consider it an era, but it is widely considered to be an era, and it's been talked about as an era, so it all depends on where you fall on it. I said it on the major desk that I actually don't think the LGSK.
I asked your opinion, not other people's.
Okay, well well. I'm just trying to quantify here, so I was just wondering
I
what's going
think-
on. Let's say 3 then. 4, 3. Nip, Fnatic, Astralis.
Wait, what?
So NIP 87 and 0. How many majors did they win in the 87 and 0 run?
0 in that run, but they
Zero.
won.
There you go.
There weren't majors. There
But
weren't
the major
majors.
they won was outside of their era. You don't say the major they won in 2014 was in their era. What are we talking about?
I don't think.
No,
I don't
they were the they played their worst when they won that major, but they played 2
Exactly.
finals before.
So the
that.
major doesn't count for their era, right? Their era was pre that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we agree on that. So we're using different criteria already
Well-
to define
well,
this.
It's an exception to the rule in the sense that they were 87 and fucking 0, Chad. And if there were
Yes,
any
but-
majors, or if you want to put a tournament that was, before the majors show up and the biggest at the time, they won those as well.
Exactly, but that's my entire point, right? So what you've just said right there, an exception to the rule. Nobody else, you said it yourself, has had a season as successful as Vitality's.
What was the time frame of?
It's the best
NIP's
season ever.
What was the time frame of NIP going 87 and 0? How long did that go on for?
That's a good question, right? It would have ended in 2013.
2012 to 2013.
So
Yeah.
like my
It's like
my
summer
biggest
of 2012,
criteria.
spring of 2013, if I'm not wrong.
But
I mean,
I
my
don't
f-
think it's
my
like a full
first-
year.
My first criteria of an era is like a long period of time. Like it has to be a significant period of time. And I can't, off the top of my head, I can't speak to the details of the 87 and 0 run because I don't remember the exact dates and everything of where it, theoretically started and ended. But I don't think one season can dictate an era.
It's not even 5 months since the win streak for Vitality sort of happened.
It's been less.
But
than
here's the
half a
thing,
year.
right? Like, are we doing? Is it a science, right? Is an era a science, or is it a
because
feeling?
This is the fun of the conversation. It's like the conversation is important, but everyone's going to have a little bit of different, importance on different aspects of it. I place probably a little bit more importance on the length of time that this lasts before I can consider something an era. Someone else, a lot of people apparently just consider winning a shit ton of events in a streak is long enough to call 5 months an era. But
But it's not winning a
that's
shit ton
difference.
of events in a streak. It's like even if you look at Astralis when they were the best team in the world, they still lost events.
Yeah, I understand.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
but the point being for me, and I'm on Jason's side here, it's harder to accomplish over a longer period of time. Like not being near perfect for a longer period of time is way better than being perfect for a shorter period of time. Remember the end of 2022 and the start of 23 for G2, those 3 tournaments in a row, they also had a massive win streak and they also had people were talking about who is anyone going to be able to beat, and then all of a sudden they fell off a little bit themselves. Other teams,
Yeah, but they didn't
made
win a
moves and
major.
other
They didn't
teams
win the
improved.
Grand Slam. They didn't.
I
They
agree.
didn't win
I agree.
7 events in a row.
No, of course, but the same thing can happen to Vitality in the sense that this peak and this performance that they have is the greatest ever, but can they continue it, right? Why? Because you already see that mid-season people are making changes. Now their competitors are making changes. That's why, obviously it's hard to stay as motivated when you've accomplished a lot already. That's just how human nature works. So all these factors, and everyone will always tell you it's more difficult to stay on top than to get to the top. And all these factors is why it's harder to sustain success over a longer period of time. And that's what makes it impressive. That's why using the word era and talking about it, like maybe we should be a little bit more careful. Not that we have to. Everyone can say whatever the fuck they want. I don't care. But for me, being in that contender status and being the best team in the world or one or two, in that conversation, definitely for a longer period of time, is harder to pull off.
Here's my distinction, right? What Astralis had was a dynasty. What Fnatic and NIP, which I agree are in the era conversation, right, has different levels to what makes them good over their runs. And I put Vitality in the same conversation as those other two. Right? The 87 and 0 for NIP, Fnatic winning 2 majors over the course of 2015, and then Vitality with their best season in Counter-Strike ever, right? Those 3 teams for me all fall into the same conversation of greatness. Right? Now, sure, I understand the longevity of it isn't there yet. We don't know what the future is going to look like for the team at all. But what they achieved within this season, I think as far as like the most successful periods of time of Counter-Strike teams, they join the conversation with those other two. Nobody joins the conversation with Astralis. I agree. If this team can win the second major of this year, maybe they don't win the first major of next year, but then they win the second major of next year, like this Vitality roster, then I feel like it's undeniable. Then they join the ranks of Astralis in the conversation. Now,
okay.
yeah.
No, go
Look, Astralis is on the top of the pedestal. There's nobody close to Astralis. Nobody. That's why I call it what they had as a dynasty and what everybody else has had, right? Because I don't bring Luminosity into this conversation. I would bring Fnatic into it. I would bring NIP into it. And they're through different periods of the game. And then I'd bring Vitality into that same level.
What about Navi 2021, if that's your criteria? No? Not dominant enough?
I have too many issues with what we came out of with the pandemic. It's not their fault. It just is.
All right.
Like that's just I just have too many that are disqualifying factors, I think.
I have a couple questions, if I may. What do you have like a requirement in terms of like time frame? Like, what if Liquid had gone on to win the Berlin Major in 2019? Would you have counted that as an era, considering they won like 5 or 6 events within like?
It'd probably be in a similar conversation as where we're at right now, but they didn't.
Yeah. But I mean,
Vitality
like that would have been truncated within like 3 months. So like the time frame just doesn't matter to you. It's about dominance during a period.
Well, this is the thing. It wouldn't have been because we did have the month break. So like what was it? 62 days.
63 days
plus
for the
a
Grand
month.
They won 5 events in those 63 days, including the Grand Slam.
And then we would have had a month where there was the tournament break, and then they would have come out and won the major, which would have been another 2.5 weeks competition.
Okay.
Right. So then, like, obviously that expands, but the break in there doesn't. It's not that doesn't exist. If anything, it would have been like, holy shit, they took the break, they came out, and they were still just as good. But it wasn't. They took the break, they came out, and they were no good.
What about the FaZe run in 2022? Would you have considered that? Do you consider that an era?
No.
Okay.
They also won.
I guess
they also weren't as dominant. They're not. They also those two teams also didn't set the meta. Right, like Vitality's setting the meta right now. They're defining the way that all the maps are being played. Right, like they're doing more within the game than just winning. Right, like and with the other teams you're talking about, sure they were winning, but they weren't defining the game overall. I think those are qualities that play into it.
When we had that era conversation at the desk, we were all kind of like, they asked us all to like send in like 3 bullet points of like what we think constitutes and creates an era. And just for the example, I mean, I'll give mine. 1 year minimum time span as the dominant team, and like 1 year is not like exactly 12 months considering the player break, but give me a year, give me 2 seasons, at least 1 major plus 1 of Katowice or Cologne, and then player or style of play that breaks the game. So kind of like the meta-defining aspect that you sort of alluded to. Those were kind of like my 3 main points for what I would constitute a team who's defining an era. And I think Vitality's hit pretty much all of those except for the length of time. And in fact, I actually think that Vitality at the end of 2025, we're going to look back on this and say it is an era. I just think it hasn't gone on long enough yet for it to click for me.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's you both have said it, and I feel the same way. Like people, this is the same with the GOAT conversation. Like everybody can have their own perspectives on things, but like right now with what we're experiencing, you first of all, like nobody can predict the future of where this is going to go, right? But with what we've just gone through and the way that they've managed their season, we're in a whole new world, right? This is the new world order of Counter-Strike, the VRS, and we've started things off where they've been very tactful about the events that they've gone to. They've been able to set these like goals along the way that are at different points. When you look at how dominant most of their wins have been, there's only been a couple of moments where we've been like, oh shit, it feels like they might lose. Like that's only happened a handful of times. Otherwise it's like, yeah, they're going to win. And that's the same type of feeling you had when Astralis was in the server. They were just head and shoulders above everybody else. Sure, at the major, they lost a map to mouz, they lost a map to Mongolz, they didn't lose a map to Navi, they lost one to Legacy. But otherwise, it was all pretty easy sailing.
Yeah, I think I think context really matters, and the fact is, like Vitality, because of how convincing it was from start to finish, really. And you have to remember, I mean, Robs only came in January, and their second tournament they 3-0'd Spirit, who won the last 2 tournaments or 3.
They won the major, and then they won Bounty.
Yeah, and they were in the final of World Finals that they lost to G2. So, going up against that team, going up against Dong, who was the best player in the world and all of that. So even without having too much time to practice and having to play several tournaments in a row at the time, and all of that makes it more impressive. And the only time they were really in danger of losing was in Melbourne to
the 12-6,
Falcons.
yeah. Yep.
And maybe
There was a series against mouz where they won the first map. They're like 13-0'd it, right? And then they went down
I
two
guess
maps and they had to win the
at that
final
point
two.
where they lose the second map, you're like, ooh, and then they won 13-7, both final maps. So those two games weren't really even that close. But that's what makes it even more impressive, really. And that's what wants you to say that it is an error, because they didn't have a true challenger. And I think even at the major, losing these maps, I think, adds to the difficulty of being, because we talked so much about them in terms of the pressure this season, right? In all these different games and all these different accomplishments, and then you go up. Of course, Legacy is like, you have to play another best of one that day, and of course you're going to try and shake it off and everything, but you've seen, Falcons go to 0-2.
mouz fucked up.
And not being able to make it. So, but they stood up to the task, took care of business, and didn't lose a game in the stage after that. And then you go to the semifinal, play against mouz, who you've been beating all year long, and you go down 0-1, and it takes a lot of just belief and mental fortitude, and also not to crumble in that moment, be like, oh my god, so not let those thoughts of creep in, oh, is it going to happen now out of all times, like we're beating them every single time,
Or in the grand final when they get smashed by Mongolz.
by the Mongolz too. But no, you could tell from Vitality and the way they played on the second and both of those series after the first map is, no, they didn't lose belief for a single moment, right? Like they just came back stronger after that first map, bounced back easily and took care of business in both of those series. Like it wasn't really even close after that point in time, and that's the hallmark of a champion, right? And I think Vitality has shown that plenty of times this season. We talked about their bond, and that's what sort of makes this team go from being elite to being, historically good. Even
going from an era to a dynasty. Chad?
That's what we're looking for, Jason. That's what we're looking for.
As if you've brought in door number 3, you fucking psycho.
No, but I think it's a fair distinction because there should be
I
levels
get
to
it.
this shit, right? Like that's the when you say an era and you mention Astralis along the names of those other fucking teams, it's like, really? Are we really like should they be anywhere near those names? No. Like 4 majors, 3 back-to-back is insane, right? They literally refined the entire way that the game is played still to the modern day, right? The blueprint that they laid out is what's been built upon since they rose to prominence back in 2018. Watching them was a pure joy. It was the same thing that's starting to happen now with Vitality in the sense that they're just the favorite going into every tournament and people start to call it boring because people don't like to watch greatness. Everybody needs to get off of the idea that some fucking dickhead down the road with a shovel as a keyboard and a mouse that he smashes against his face could win a grand final. It's like, no, guess what? You're the best for a reason, and that's what Vitality are. And I hope that we go into Cologne. I hope they keep winning. I hope they get the double grand slam, the
double major,
the 2 in the year.
I honestly, I hope they do too. I think we're gonna look back and regret calling it an era if they come out of this break and start getting smoked, which is not impossible. So let's just be patient.
Yeah,
that's the argument.
Even just to end on the Vitality at the major conversation, I mean, you look at the grand final, Apex is the highest rated player with the most ADR.
And then Mezzi
has the most kills. Obviously, and then Apex has 94 ADR. The lowest is Flamesy with 75.5, who also had very good moments. So it really is a testament of what Vitality has done this season and
the
how
depth of the team.
Exactly, how they're, a true group, how they're not just reliant on Zywu to carry them anymore or anything along those lines. And, without a doubt, the best team in that sense. But I even said after, it ended, it's like all these teams are making changes. No matter which changes you make, it's going to be very, very difficult to topple them.
It's going to set you back initially, for sure.
Yeah, because people talk about, oh yeah, but they just had the drops and went off, right? Like surely, that could be Falcons with Kyosuke, or it could be Spirit with Zweih, or whatever happens there. I don't know, but no, it's not that. The core of this team has been together for a super long time with Zywu, Apex, and Flamesy. They added them after.
Dupree.
After Paris over 2 years ago. So you have that. You have Matt has been there, I think, since Vitality has had their CS division, the assistant coach. You know,
Yeah, he's been there a while.
xkaspersky has been there early on, and they had
In
the
and
Zonic
out,
era,
yep.
and then he came back. So he has a long-standing relationship with both Apex and zweih, who are the two most important players on the team. You know, they've had their performance coach there, Jack, for a while, right? And then you've added Mezzy, who's a great sort of glue guy, a very versatile player. He's not going to take too much space. He's not going to raise a fuss. He's just going to keep his head down and do the work, which is always great to have a player like that who doesn't take too much space in and out of the game. And then on all of that, yes, you add that final piece, Robs, who's the ultimate sort of winner, right? Like he did the same thing when he came to FaZe over from mouz. He immediately elevated them. Guy who's super cool under pressure, especially in big games. He showcased that in the first map, in the first grand final map he played for this team on Dust 2 against Spirit in Katowice, right? And it was that he was the final piece of the puzzle. He wasn't the solution. It was they already had the groundwork. They had it all laid out. They had all the dynamics sorted between the coach and the in-game leader and how they wanted to play, and the opera was very familiar. And of course they have obviously a generational talent in terms of zweih. They had two of the most overqualified support players on the team in terms of Mezzy and Flamesy, right? Who don't necessarily even have higher aspirations than doing exactly what they're doing in Vitality, which is just win every tournament they play, it feels like. But they don't care about individual performances or how they're viewed in terms of individual prowess. Shout out to Spinks one time, so they're fine with where they're at. All these other teams have to fucking figure it out. I mean, Kixan and Zonic have known each other for 5 months, right? Play together for 5 months. You get NiKo in there as well, who's a vocal player. You get Monesi, who, okay, those two know each other, but they don't know Zonic. They don't know Kixan. They don't know Tessus that well. Like, obviously, over the course of the season, they got better, which you saw in terms of results too. And maybe with Kyosuke, like, they'll just have so much firepower where the game will be easier for them to play. But, how many tough losses has Vitality experienced? How many shit series has zweih played in the majors, like, or how many bad runs have they had to reach this form, right? All that experience molds you and builds you and helps you become a better team.
I think there's more to it, though. Like the recipe coming into this year, the chip on the shoulder for zweih just being the third best player in the world, not one or two, right? The fact that Flamesy and Mezzy haven't won a major before, the fact that Apex is still chasing the dragon, or was still chasing the dragon, of being like, yeah, I'm a legitimate in-game leader. I'm not just like a fucking loud guy that was an entry fragger. Rops moving from a team that started to become something he was very fond of, something he was very disappointed with, then getting to play with a star player like zweih, right? You look back at his career, hasn't really had those same opportunities up until this type of a point. So there's all those things that come together. xkaz hasn't won a major together. He still has something to prove, right? Or had something to prove. So that all coming together at that time, like, you're talking about the growth to that point, but I'm looking at it more from a mentality standpoint, and everybody within that team had a reason for this season to come together. There's nobody coasting. There's nobody at the tail end. There's nobody thinking, oh yeah, like this is it. They're all ready for it. So I think that also works out for them as well.
And Apex even came out and said he's already set that next goal. He wants to go down as one of the greatest IGLs, or the greatest IGL of all time. He's basically just come out and said, I'm just going to chase that next. That's his goal, is to go out as the number 1 IGL.
I just love Apex, man. Like, obviously,
he's legit as fuck.
He's a huge personality, but I think he's also a great example of how to harness. You said a chip on his shoulder. I think he's had it his whole career, because even when Apex, he was always regarded as just like, for a while, one of the best entry fraggers. No one ever said he was one of the best players. No one ever thought Apex was one of the best players in the world. He was maybe
I think we described him as like the brain dead entry fragger who was just going to get
one
away.
of the best role players at the time. So people were always talking about Shocks. People were always talking about Kenny X. They were talking about MBK before they would talk about Apex. And he played with some of these guys on teams, and
even RPK sometimes,
and probably felt that I'm better than these guys.
Scream.
Like, these guys are not better than me. I can showcase it. So he always had that chip on his shoulder, right? And even more so when he became an IGL and had to do a lot of proving to not just himself, but more so to everyone else. And that has been a journey. And I think he's definitely established himself as one of the best without a doubt. Doing it with...
Look, spite, Janko, is a great way to motivate yourself. I'll
Yeah.
tell you that much.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. That's from recent experience. If you're feeling fucking spiteful about something, you can channel that anger. You can channel that being looked over. You can channel that fucking having to play the political minefield, and you can use that. You can harness that, and you can drive that power in the right direction. You can do some of your absolute best work. That's it. Use the anger for good, everybody. Don't let it bring you down. Don't let it bring other people down. Let it elevate you. Be like Vegeta, right? Be chasing that Goku. Yeah, you worked out, Jason? Yeah, you got that?
You got confused
Yeah,
first.
I thought you said something different.
No, I didn't say vagina.
Oh man. Janko, I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to ask you for your full thoughts on the Falcons collapse. Particularly, I'd like to get your thoughts.
Whose fault was the 5v3, Janko?
Your 5v3. I would like to hear.
There it is.
Ooh. Go on.
Yeah, well, why is that? That's controversial. What?
It is for Jason.
he-
He's a fucking
No,
Tessus
it's
hater
not.
over here.
Why is he not just like? Why did he feel the need to move from holding bottom B? You know,
Because he wanted to close the game. I agree, Janko. It's actually Monacy's fault.
you know, like
And I want a public apology from him.
just I want to tweet longer.
I have gone on the record as well that I'm not a Tessus hater. It was in fact Monacy's fault.
You know, it's just one of the most. It's an unfortunate round where he moves.
Yeah, I guess.
no, I mean,
pretty
No, I
unfortunate.
mean it's his fault, but in a sense
Just
of
unlucky, really.
if he just stayed for a second more and then
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
the
he would have
timing,
killed the
yeah.
guy. The timing of it is unfortunate that his mistake leads to a round loss. You know, a different time they would still find a way to win the round. That's his problem, was he choked and didn't communicate it, sort of he's going to swing, or he didn't talk to Monacy at all about how they're going to handle this guy in B. He had a life round. The way he pre-fired NiKo was kind of nuts. But
That was
it
huge.
is for
That was a
Falcons.
massive
It
kill.
is just, we talked about pressure and everything about vitality. Falcons just crumbled under it, and I think the sad part is like there is no one to really point a finger at and say, "Oh yeah, this one guy is." I think they all share the blame. I think it's a testament to, you know, having one off day on a day where you have two best of ones. And you go down in the hole, it can be tough to crawl out of. And
The teams they lost to are fucking pathetic,
Yes.
though, right? Like,
Yes, yes.
it's
But
pathetic.
I know,
That's the
but
problem.
you look at the game against, you know, Bait as well. It's 3 resets in the first half, you know, and then they just never really got going. They're one of the best pistol round teams in the world. They were 3-15. I mean,
Oh, yeah, they
I
sucked,
think in the
yeah.
tournament, and out of the 3 pistols they won, they lost the second round 2 times. Like, they're always playing from behind. You're always struggling to find momentum, right? And when the games are going like that, it's not easy to feel super confident.
Monacy was botting out in their opening games as well.
That's the problem, right? Like, and then
Yeah.
then you go
He
into
can't
then,
bot out.
Then it starts good against OG, you're 9-3 up, and then you lose, right? Like, if they were able to maybe win that 2-0 confidently, then it would be like, all right, it's just the best of ones, we're back, it's best of 3s, and there's a high chance they do what mouz did and come all the way back. But it was always labored, so even that win doesn't feel so good. And yeah, obviously still not an excuse to lose against those teams. I don't think that the fact Magisk was getting replaced played a big part in it. You know,
I don't think it helped. I think it would have been good for them not to have that, like, as a conversation point. I understand that NiKo and Monacy did it last season with Shanghai and still made a deep run, right? But I think, I just think having that there is never a fun thing. I agree with you. I think they're professionals. I think they still go into it, you know, with the right focus.
I don't
and
think.
stuff,
I think
but
it's that. I
it
think it's
doesn't help.
just they knew they were a contender, or at least they felt like a contender. So even with that happening, Magisk, you know, he's not gonna miss on an opportunity to maybe lift another major.
Tie up Dupree, yeah.
You know, in a way, right? Like, if they were struggling and if they were mid, like, you know, G2 were, and that, yeah, I could see them sort of just kind of half giving up and just going through the motions of the tournament. But I don't think that was the case. I think everyone was like trying their best. It's just their best was nowhere near
Not good enough.
nowhere near good enough.
I find it hard at the moment. Like, this whole like argument that was rising, and it was a question that was posed in the desk a couple of times, and I'm finding it harder and harder to argue against the idea that NiKo is probably the biggest choker in the game's history.
Yeah, it is tough to look
Like,
past. I know Maui brought it up.
Yeah, it feels gross to say out loud, but like when I look at like the resume and the body of work, I'm like,
We're talking majors, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, it's really hard to like make the anti-argument, even though I really want to. I'm just like,
I think
there's
it's
nowhere
hard
for me to
to
really
be honest.
go.
Like this is what Maui brought up on the Snake and Banter episode I did with him and Duncan, right? And I think actually Duncan did a better job of defending NiKo than I did in the sense of I think it's also some of it is cherry picking games, right? And just looking at the stats without looking at the games can also give you a misguided picture. And you know, for example, people talk about Stockholm and nuke round and whatnot and everything. I think if you go and look at the semifinal against Heroic and the third map and what NiKo did on Inferno, it's one of the greatest single player carry performances, you know, in major playoff history. Really, in a way, he dragged that team across the finish line really on his own. People will talk about, you know, Shanghai. If you go back to the quarterfinals in the game against Heroic, they lost the first map, right? And then on the second map, he had something insane like 20-something and 2 or 24 and 4 on the CT side over, I don't know how much ADR, but he basically willed his team into a third map as well. Well, we're sure he wasn't the same as Lights Out. Malbs had a better game there, especially in overtime, but you know, there were games where their backs were already against the wall, where if he didn't step up, they would have already been eliminated from the tournament. You know, you're gonna talk about the FaZe series in that semifinal. You look at Ancient, every single gun round on T side, FaZe is going A. NiKo's playing B anchor. Like he's stuck in having to play retakes or just having to save or do something really aggressive at the start in the default to try to find an advantage. And then again, nuke, okay, a little bit of that was just getting on. But for me, it's also what Duncan said in that one is, here's the problem, is like when he has a bad game, you know, or is struggling, there is a 0% chance that his team will win the game. Yes. That's the problem, right? Like, meanwhile, other superstars don't have this sort of a win condition. I mean, okay, I'm not going to say ZywOo played bad in the final, but he didn't have to carry. It's like...
well, Simple had that back when he was at the peak of his powers, right? Like 2017, 2018, 2019. Yeah. Like, that was Simple's problem there. If Simple wasn't carrying, they weren't going to win anything. So the NiKo conversation for me, it's not about getting into the weeds about necessarily like his stats or his output in certain matches and, you know, did he help them get through this game or did he not? It's more like the really bad results that they've had, right? Like this one falls into that, as well as the Rio one, right? Like those two, like they stand out. And then the gutting losses in finals, and mainly the Boston one, right? Yeah. So it's like a combination of those two, because at no point would I sit there and say anywhere in the world that NiKo is a bad Counter-Strike player and he's not good enough to win a major. Like that's not the conversation, right? But there's clearly something on these high pressure environments, and for him chasing this, for the caliber of player he is, there's not many other Counter-Strike players out there who haven't been able to attain that goal of NiKo's level, right? Like, you know, in terms of who have been playing the game for as long as what he has. Like Guardian is one who's always going to go down in that sense, right? As someone who was of an extremely high level and not able to obtain the major. It would be a shame for NiKo's career if he never does. And then you look now where we are at the moment, and you think to yourself, okay, so now they've stacked the deck even more. They just added Kiyosuke to this team. You know, are the next 6 months just these guys getting used to each other then to potentially win the first one in next year, right? We don't know. We don't know what the future is going to hold right now. But like Jason, you were always pretty out, like especially when this move happened. You were like, well, NiKo's just moved further away from winning a major than he was before. Was that roughly your stance with the G2 change?
Yeah. I thought, from the departure out of G2. However, I would say, I mean, it looks like a cool prediction now that they bombed out at this major, but I didn't necessarily expect m0NESY to be there within like 4 months, you know? Like
sure.
That kind of changes, I think, like that makes my initial prediction wrong, although results-wise, I guess it's still kind of there in a way. But yeah, I thought, you know, that G2 team seems poised and right there, especially after getting, you know, having a good Shanghai and a good Copenhagen, and then that switch over to Falcons. Like, if that rebuild took any longer, yeah, it felt like that was a move further away from a major trophy, but now they're putting together a star-studded lineup, so maybe they're back. It's just we have to see the quality.
I think that the problem is more to do with NiKo's drop-off in form in recent times. So whether that's down to him being part of a new roster at the moment, then, okay, that's one conversation. But in terms of the output they need from a player in the positions he was playing. This is why I like the Kyosuke addition, because I hope that he takes away certain positions from NiKo and puts in NiKo in places that he was playing before, where I think he can still have really like monstrous output. But seeing NiKo play mid on Ancient on both sides, like that's like watching a car crash in slow motion. I want to look away. Like the guy isn't designed to be playing around utility in that fashion. Throw somebody else like a Kyosuke in the mix right there with a Tesses, make him the A guy, Kyosuke the mid guy, Kixon can stay the cave guy, and fucking NiKo can take B long. And then NiKo can also take that position on the T side. And he's great at that. Go up the ramp, your own timings, take aim duels. He'll bust open a bunch of heads. Like, I think that this change overall should be a strong one for him. But like, I started to gravitate us away from this major conversation that we were just having. But I think this is kind of like course correcting maybe for some of his misses in recent times, because you can't argue with some of the lack of output that he's been having recently. So yeah, I know it's tough. I know the rosters are changing, the pressure's high, but that's the way it is.
Is that kind of like you saying like he's not, you know, right for some of those positions as you mentioned with like the fights around utility, or do you think it's a point in his career where he's got to step away from the more hardcore star positions at this point? You know what I mean? Like, is he getting to a point where like you should be the veteran?
I think it's his play style. It doesn't thrive around mid on Ancient as just one prime example, right? Like there's so much utility being thrown there. You know, there's other maps, and I'd have to get into the weeds about it a bit more to look where, you know, Banana, I still think he's fine, right? Like I think Banana, it's still fine for him, but it's different types of fights. I think Ancient is a little bit different in that regard.
B ramp on Ancient, if that's where you're trying to string him, feels very similar to Banana on Inferno, where you can play like the bait out utility game and then go for your bullying fights into the bomb site.
Yeah, I think that there's still positions that he can play to like grace, like Nuke, for example, on Yard. I still think that he should be in those type, but it's the way that the game kind of progresses in those areas is different. So I don't think you'll see him step away from being in positions that dictate the flow of the game. That's how this works, right? With him as a player, he's not doing the in-game leading, but he's calling a lot from his positions, and I don't imagine that would change, because you can't just throw Kyosuke into all of those spots and go, all right, kid, you've never played Tier 1 Counter-Strike before. Good luck. You know, like, you're just going to do it now. It's like, no, Kixon's going to tell him what to do. It's like having a shiny new car. Kixon gets to take it out of the take it out of the garage and take it for a drive. Yeah, and if that kid can unleash like Donk, right, which is, you know, his player profile is very, very similar to that. You can have Tesses or NiKo trading off the back of him. I think it'd be awesome.
I did say, you know, talking about the Falcons and their crumble, it's like they were losing rounds with advantages as well, not just pistol clutches. Yes. I mean, the Brenner round on Nuke and some of that shit. It's like,
oh yes,
you know, for teams with so many experienced players, it's unacceptable. And you're bringing Kyosuke doesn't fix that. If anything, it makes it worse, because English is not his first language. This is his first international team, so comms at the start at least should be a little bit tricky and figuring it out, you know. And he's also obviously quite talented, but inexperienced when it comes to Tier 1. And I'm sure, you know, Falcons would have done their due diligence, but there's only so much you can do until the guy comes onto the team and goes on those stages and plays against these teams to see like whether he has it. I'm sure they're confident that he does, but there's still a degree of risk to it, right? And they'll have to put all of that together coming into this next season. The problem is, I was thinking we switch away from this at the time, or
sure.
Yeah, I was like, but the one is, do you think mouz should be making a change?
I don't think they will. I don't
think they will, but do you think they should?
But who would you replace?
I don't know.
That's the thing. That's the thing. I think Jimmy's sufferings have been aided by Spinks in the team. I don't think he's anywhere near as good at like making the room required for Jimmy then to, you know, have an easier time in his spots. People are going to wonder how there's even a correlation there, but look at Rops in Vitality and how everything seems to be working so much better than it was with Spinks. But yeah, I think that if you look at mouz, for me, mouz are the second best team of the season. For them, they have to ride or die by what they have, which is essentially have Torji and Exertion call all of their openers on every map, and then hope that Brolin can bring it together in the mid-round. Yeah. Otherwise, what do you change? You would need a perfect fit of a piece for it to make any sense. If you're like, okay, well, we need some more experience here. Maybe we get Magisk off of Falcons and he can replace Jimmy. Right? Okay. Is that a good move? I don't know. Doesn't feel like a great move. Feels like a lateral move. right? Does that help you win now?
Also,
I don't think so.
You just re-signed Jimmy like literally like 4 months ago or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you get Bit from Na'Vi? That would be a good addition. Probably not. I don't think that's happening. So if you can't get Bit from Na'Vi, then where else are we looking?
Especially if they're changing EMA and JL already, they're not going to be motivated to sell anyone.
You have to keep Torji, right? Like him and Exertion, even though I think like they both have their ups and downs, but I think that you have to stick by that. That's kind of your identity as mouz. Spinks has good stats in the team, so how can you justify getting rid of him? You made the move away from Shui, which I can only assume was because Exertion and Torji essentially want to call how the game flows, and you wanted more of a I don't want to call it like a passive in-game leader, but an in-game leader who's going to like pick up the pieces, which is kind of the way that I look at it from Brawl. Like he's going to be doing the strategies, working on everything with Cycren and Zip and all of that, and no doubt about it. But like by self-admission in some tweets back and forth with Exertion, he calls the openers, right? And if he's not getting the space or they're not getting the trades, then that's their rounds, right? So they probably wanted an in-game leader that doesn't need to have full control and be the puppet master of how everything flows. So if you replace Brolin, then who do you get? Who's going to be an in-game leader who could fit into that category who's better than Brolin? I don't know. I couldn't find anybody.
Well, I think what I said I don't know is because it feels impossible to know without being on the team, right? Like, what is it that they're missing? Sure, you can point to Torji's performance in the semifinal in the 2 maps they lost and say, well, that's terrible. And before I used to say he's their best player on stage, but this year actually he's been more shaky. He's been less consistent, and I mean they've had the unfortunate circumstance of having to play Vitality a lot of times, which are the best team in the world. But I mean, if you're gonna be the guy, that's where you need to deliver, right? You're the second best team in the world, or second, third, whatever. And if you want to be that content, those are the guys you need to beat. I don't care about you beating up on, I don't know, the Mongolz or Aurora or Furia or whoever else. Like, this is where you need to do your best work in a way. Like, this is where you need to prove yourself, and it has been a struggle. And for them, for the issues that they have, they say, oh, we're not playing mouse Counter-Strike in this stage. Like, who's the problem for that? Who gets more quiet during these games? Or whose comms get too chaotic, right? Who's the person who maybe forgets some of the things that they should be doing that you were doing in prep, right? Like, these are the details that we cannot necessarily see or know about from the outside, but that the people on the team know about. And I'm sure that because it's so small, you're trying to work through it. You're trying to work with the player individually for it to get better, for you to be able to just overcome that and keep this vibe, because being top 3 is no easy feat either, and these mouse players know it themselves, right? But that's why I say they're not going to make a change now, but if they don't find a way to beat Vitality next season, they have to make a change at the end of the year.
Probably at the end of the year, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I just think, like, what are they meant to do now? And, like, being second to Vitality at the moment, it's like, well, I guess
everyone else
second
is.
will do. Yeah, it's like, well,
they also have like simultaneously the best problem and the fucking worst problem, which is that you're second best team in the world. You can beat everyone except for one team, so you don't want to, like, which is an awesome problem to have. Anyone would fucking kill to be in the second best team throughout an entire season fighting for trophies, but the question of how to make that final step to get over Vitality is just like, it's just fraught with fucking peril and danger. Because if you decide like making a change is the way to go, that can ruin everything and drop you down to like 5th, 6th, 7th place, and all of a sudden you can fall out of that position. But the other way, standing pat, feels like you've already kind of run its course in terms of that strategy because you haven't been able to do it. And really you're kind of relying on someone like Torji stepping up to find more impact and more consistency with that impact in the big stages. If you want to make that leap, Exertion stepping up and become like you're relying on some leap up internally that hasn't happened over the past season. So like you're just in this like weird limbo place where it's like, please, I hope somebody can figure it out at this point.
Yeah, it's not an enviable
it's not
spot.
It's not a great one, but at the same time, it kind of is. You're like stuck between like two good things in a way, which is almost like one of the most frustrating positions to be in.
Yeah, I don't know how they get out of it. Like you just like, I think to Janko's point, if you don't make the breakthrough, the eureka moment, like you've lost 7 times to mouz this season. I'm sorry, to Vitality this season alone. If it doesn't change, like then you would be looking for something, because everybody's in the arms race.
Yeah.
The sad part is very few of those, almost none of the games were close. You mentioned the Blast Lisbon one with the 2-13-11 wins, but you look at how dominant. the 3 maps Vitality won were 13-0, 13-7, 13-7. And Mouz's were 2 13-11 wins. I know a win is a win, but when you add that context to the 7-0, then it's like makes it look even
It's
worse.
rough.
I'm more interested in, I was here saying the only reason we considered, Aurora and the Mongolz potentially becoming contenders is because everyone else sucked. But I think these next couple of tournaments and this next season will tell us if they can be one or not, because obviously they made the major final. The most impressive part is beating FaZe on stage and Senzu actually having a good playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So if he has actually managed to find a way to overcome his demons on that stage and play on the same level he does in groups, that adds so much to the Mongolz, where maybe now you can start thinking about, okay, did their ceiling become high enough now?
I think for Mongolz, it's definitely an unlocking event, right? Because for me, there's never been a question about the type of Counter-Strike that they played. Everyone talks to the teams who play them. It's like, oh yeah, they shoot hard. And I think in terms of their style, it's a little bit off meta, but overall, there's some really good ideas there. And I think that the players have shown really great peaks. I think you think of like a Mazinho peak or a 9-10 peak or a Senzu peak, and I'm not talking about a Zentaro's peak. I'm talking about like the level that they can show when they're playing at their best. They look really good. They look like legit Counter-Strike players. They look like world-class Counter-Strike players. And for a young team, youngest team of the playoffs, one of the youngest teams at the major, their entire season is just taking steps and getting into playoffs, and then finally to get the breakthrough at the major, that's the most confident building one. And I understand the field that they played against. There was pain, and it was against FaZe. But FaZe was a team that we always talk about is players just with a shitload of stage experience, and that doesn't change with Simple in the ranks. Sure, he'd been out of a playoff for 952 days since Rio. That was the last time that he played a playoff game at a major.
Oof.
But still, I think that it doesn't matter for the mentality of the Mongolz that that's the case. For the mentality of the Mongolz, we just beat FaZe on a stage at the major. That's all that matters for them. So I think that those wins that they got to get to the point of the final, and then even taking a map, you saw that confidence being exuded on Mirage, right? The clutches that they were winning, 9-10s all pace, like they were the crowd chanting Senzu's name. I think that right there, if this was like an anime, that's a pivotal moment for this team. Like that's a growth moment. That's the season finale. It doesn't end with sunshine and rainbows, but it ends with this happiness and the idea that building on from this point, hopefully now they're unlocked, right? Obviously time will tell, but hopefully.
Yeah. Do you think the 1 month break now is going to affect that? Do you think it can derail it? Like, because
Not really.
If
I
you
don't
can
think
leave
if
that
they get
final and go into an event, you get to ride the momentum. Now you kind of leave this final and this run, and you have to like sit and chill for 3-4 weeks.
I think, if anything, it'll continue to drive them because they will have not felt the elation of a major grand final, but they've also not would have felt the heartbreak. And the fact that they won a map shows how close they were. Now, I understand the next 2 maps after that weren't close at all, and they didn't play the same Counter-Strike that you'd hope, but that's the nerves of being in a major grand final that followed on after that. If anything, like I would hope, and considering the way that the team has constantly been powering up and taking these steps, that it is just another mental addition. That they handle this. They don't get too big for their britches. They don't start thinking like they have an ego. And so maybe for Senzu it'd be good if he plays with more of an ego, especially in playoff games, because that's where ego's missing. That's what we need. I hope it's that unlocking moment where they now have a new power level, because I think having Vitality at the top and then having the 3 teams around them of mouz, Spirit, and Falcons is all fun, but I would love to add another name to that mix. And if Mongolz gets to be the name to be the 5th, right, it'd be great.
Sweet.
I'm looking forward to seeing what they come in with next. And group stages has never really been the issue for them, right? And they should be. I'm pretty sure they're in the top 8. Like, why would they not be? They've been one of the highest ranked teams for the entire year, so they should be in like stage 2 of Cologne. They are, right? So they'll already be straight there with the bigger boys. They won't have to go through the play-ins. I don't think it'll hurt them. I think they'll just go back and have a European boot camp or whatever, a week or whatever before the event, and they'll be picking back up where they left off. 3 weeks of holidays, and away you go. I hope this is the turning point. That's all I can say, because we don't know, but I hope it's the turning point.
I do too.
I'm high on the Mongolz.
I really do.
Good bunch of kids, man.
I mean, I feel
Nice
the
bunch of
same.
guys.
I feel the same about like a team like Legacy, who finally had a breakthrough. I'm hoping that translates after.
When
the
do we
event.
even see them next?
I know that's what kind of creeps me out a little bit. But I mean, I guess this run at the major should give them enough VRS points to basically get invites to the next round of events, right?
But it's later down the track, isn't it? Because that's the thing. Like, they're not invited to Cologne. They should be invited to
Pro League, I would
Bound.
imagine they should be at.
That's a good. They're at Bounty, or they're predicted to be invited to Bounty. So that starts online and then finishes on LAN if they can get to the LAN portion, but they'll have to be in Europe anyway. EWC's top 16 teams in the world, so they're not in the mix for that. I think that those invites were done earlier, so they're not in the mix for that. Then we would have after that.
Chengdu, they have the invite at the moment.
Okay, so that's the VRS predicted stuff, right?
Yes, the VRS prediction.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, they'll get some opportunities. I think the cool-off factor for them is probably harder, though, than Mongolz, because theirs is a flash in the pan, whereas Mongolz has been a slow build. So for Legacy, even though dude, they were hitting so hard. Like, all of their individuals were shooting so hard. Like, this Nissim kid as well, like, he was sharp in all those anchor spots. He looked fantastic. Obviously, Dumao and Lado, that combination was popping off.
I mean, let's say this. They should have been in the playoffs.
They could have definitely been in the playoffs, yeah.
I mean, I'll go as far as say they definitely should have been there. Like that series they lost and got eliminated to mouz, like a leading on both the second and the third map to close out the series and letting 2 comebacks happen. Man, that's
choking right there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it definitely was. And it was like finally, I mean, I guess the first time we saw them really choke throughout this run when they got to that point. So, I mean, it's understandable, but I remember just watching that mouz game being like, I mean, they were up 9-3 at the end of the first half of Nuke on the third map and then lost 1-10 for the rest of the half. Like, just fell apart and could not close out a round. That was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I enjoyed their run, but at the same time, I don't know if they'll be able to. I think that for them is bottled up in that one event. And I think it's that's
very possible. Same with like Pain. Pain could be for how far they went. I mean that feels like it could just be a one-off. I mean those guys were surprised to even qualify to the playoffs and then surprised to win the quarterfinal. Like
yeah, but I had to do this a lot when I was casting. Is I didn't feel that people were talking about the Pain story holistically enough. I feel like it was just like, oh, they've had a disappointing season, but people didn't bother explaining why the season was disappointing. And it was like that's the thing is they changed. Lux went out last year at the end of Shanghai. Then Davideus came in for the start of this year. Then the first couple of events were hit and miss. Like they weren't blowing socks off, but they were making playoffs, and then they weren't making playoffs, and then they were making playoffs again. And they were like, okay, well, Cowers is too weak. So they replaced Cowers. Then they replaced him with an academy player. Then Biggie Zero had Gluia, couldn't go to Melbourne. They played with their coach and an academy player. Then eventually they signed DGT. Then they went to Rivals with no practice straight after Melbourne, and they came last, obviously. They had no practice. Then, yeah.
Well, I mean, you're right. We covered this on the desk a couple of times. The hard part about it is at no point during the season did we get to see what they could be if they had their full, so it's kind of like we didn't really have anything to fall back on, which I think is the
we
hard
got
part.
to see what they were at the major.
Yeah. Yep, we did.
Right? But like that's the whole thing.
But I don't know if I put that in the same boat as like a Legacy of like, is it going to continue? Is it going to happen?
You got to put more
again?
faith in that than Legacy because they were all like Pain was last year the best Brazilian team.
I liked Legacy a lot more than I liked Pain at this event, personally.
Yes, he's coming around.
I thought Legacy looked way better than I thought Pain looked at this event.
I think
eye test wise.
I think NQZ's a better AWPer than Sadzin.
Not by much.
I think
NQZ was great. He was really good at this event, but he also took a shit ton of openings. He was so fired up on openings.
Let me just contextualize this for a second, right? Because like I think Lux did a great job stepping in and being an in-game leader after nothing.
Okay.
But this season, with the full roster that Pain have now, and obviously I understand they chose to change players, but they didn't choose to have visa issues. They didn't choose for Biggie Zero to have Gluia. They didn't choose to have to use their coach in multiple occasions. They've only played 30 maps together this season, and most of those were at the major. They played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. They played 10 maps, not at the major. So 20 of their 30 maps this season were at the major.
Yeah, but I think is that? I guess in my head right now, I'm saying I don't know which side you're making the case for because I could easily, I feel like, use that to say that's probably why they won't continue this form after the major.
I'm using it because the base of Pain was higher than like the base of Legacy, right? Legacy didn't have a base. Legacy just kind of came out of nowhere, and they were like, okay, yeah, they shouldn't even be here. They're playing really well.
It was just disappointment with full lineup, and then the major run.
Right. The thing when you look at with Pain is last year, in my mind, they were probably the best Brazilian team, right? Like they were at least the most exciting Brazilian team. Now, obviously, they made lots of roster changes from then, and they're a South American team now anyway because they have a Chilean and a Uruguayan. I think that's wrong. It's probably like when we say Kazakhstani and it's just Kazakh. But I think that this is like the base. No, I think saying the base isn't reasonable. But I think that they're a team who, in these formats, will be fighting for like the last playoff spots. The problem is with like a Cologne or a Katowice or some of the Blast events as well. It's only 6 teams in the playoffs. I think they're around like a 9th to 12th team.
Okay.
That if they make a playoffs, I'd be like, oh, okay, yeah, they did good at this one. But normally, I would expect them to be placing somewhere from 9th to 12th.
Sure.
That's what I would be expecting. I still think they're.
I'm just fucking sad about FaZe, man. You know, I believed. I wanted to believe, and I did believe, and I had, you know, the FaZe versus Spirit grand final, and FaZe getting revenge for Shanghai, and Simple being the MVP, and Jason, and you know, experiencing how pregnancy feels like, or labor, or whatever the fuck.
How the tables have turned.
That bet feels, or that bet was about, but. Yeah, I did not have them losing to the Mongolz. I didn't think there was no chance, but considering they already played them and beat them, and now we're moving on to the stage and all of that, it was just disappointing. It really ruined that side of the bracket because FaZe was really, you know, the only team that would have made it exciting in a way. Like if, you know, I'm not saying it would have happened, but if Vitality were to drop the first map against FaZe in the final, who knows what could have happened.
Mate, I had Vitality winning no matter what. But I get what you're saying about the FaZe thing. Here's what I dislike about the FaZe thing, Janko. Now, just bear with me for a second. Jason, have you seen Peter Pan?
I have seen Peter Pan, yes.
Okay, so there's a quote from Peter Pan when comedian passed away, very sad. Robin Williams is talking with Sandra Bullock, not Sandra Bullock, Julia Roberts. Yep. Tinkerbell. And she says, every time you say you don't believe in fairies, a fairy dies. And I kind of felt that was Jason's not superpower.
What are you trying to drop this whole thing on me?
I think every time Jason said Simple's not back, a part of Simple died. And, you know, so that's why Simple botted out really hard in that playoff game, is because, you know, Simple needed Jason to believe in him.
I can't believe you're calling a Simple fairy like this and you're not even fucking worried about it.
He needed Jason to believe in him. He was part of the North American representation. It was FaZe Clan with the Liege, and Simple was there. And if Jason had just believed, I really think that Simple would have done it. But Jason didn't want it to happen.
He took it away
all
from
his
us.
career, Chad, Simple has been turning haters into fans. And for this comeback to be complete, he just needed to turn his biggest one. His biggest
Jason
one.
Moses O'Toole.
Jason Moses O'Toole. And Jason wouldn't flinch.
Don't give the public this kind of ammunition.
He wouldn't flinch. And the dream fizzled out. And FaZe was out.
That's why that side of the bracket was so shit, Jason. Thanks, Jason.
To be honest, it has nothing to do. It has nothing to do with Simple. To be fair to Jason, it's all payback to Elige for his time in Team Liquid.
Hey, I told that motherfucker on my last day it was all going to come back full circle. I said, I'm going to get you. I'm going to wait until it means the fucking most. And then everything you love will turn to ash in your mouth.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I don't know. If I was a smarter fucking influencer, man, I'd be fucking pimping all those clips of me making those claims, and I just feel bad now. I'm just like, I don't even want to do. I saw him at the bar afterwards after the game.
He was devastated, man.
He was, yeah. Well, you know me.
Devastated.
After that, before that, not even. This wasn't even about you.
Simple,
you weren't the focal point of this joke. Yeah. Two guys that should be getting paid millions of dollars for their work.
The $1 million men, we call them.
Yeah.
Just bring Zywoo into the conversation. It would have been perfect.
No,
yeah,
it's one of those ones I would have rather have been wrong. You know, like I do actually feel bad. Like I want Simple to succeed. I think that's what's getting lost in all this, which is really annoying. Is people think I'm just like this epic Simple hater. I did have to go a little bit hard in the paint to make the point, but.
Not that you enjoyed it or anything.
I just enjoy being right, you know? That's it. That's really all things are.
So, Janko, it was apparently Jason was caught laughing like this after Simple played badly. You ready?
Yep.
We're bringing a
like
soundboard
Jason.
in. Yeah, sponsors are going to love that shit.
That was actually me, but yeah, that wasn't me after Simple lost. That was after something else. That was a voice note I sent to Alex. So we're having a good time.
Yeah.
That's great.
Having a great time.
All right. Rapid fire.
Pretty much all out.
What?
Yeah, okay. You want to do the rapid fire? These
I like
little
rapid
announcements from yesterday?
Yeah, I think.
There's a lot that's been going on, Jason.
There has been. Let's rapid fire it.
Yeah.
Janko, kick us off.
Virtus Pro.
Perfecto VP.
Yeah, Virtus Pro bench Flamus, Perfecto completes VP roster.
The hilarious part about this is Flamus signed a 4-year deal. So let me play the sound again. Hold up. So yeah, poor Flamus, I guess. Like fucking
It
hell.
does say contract ends 2029 on his on his profile on HLT.
Yeah, so he's in a cage.
He's
So
in
that sucks for
simple
Flamus.
prison.
I'm not sure what happens with him. Hopefully they let him go so we can go be part of like the next Ash project. Probably when Na'Vi take PR, then maybe Ash can get Flamus back or something if VP are feeling nice. I think the interesting addition is Perfecto added to the team. So I'm curious with how this all works because Overdrive did make a tweet saying that Flit was trying to leave and he wanted to go join Paravision with Jame and Fame was going to go with him. But apparently Perfecto joining saved the current installation of VP. Them at the major, though, was probably the most exciting they were all season long.
Yeah.
So, and I think Perfecto is going to do better on those CT side roles than what Flamus would because Flamus was never meant to be that type of a guy. He was a hound on a leash who was ready to break the chain in Ash's hands back in Gamer Legion. They just used him as that sharp spear. So I think it's probably a good thing that Perfecto gets to play those roles in that team, but I don't know what my expectation overall is for VP.
Yeah,
it doesn't really shift too much.
He's been out for over a year, hasn't he?
Yes.
So you're in that same kind of a situation, which is how long is it going to take you to warm back up? Can you get it back? I think those are two very fair questions. So I think it's kind of cool. I think it's clearly Electronic saying he wants to bring in someone that he knows he can rely on. I have no idea how it's going to change this team, if it'll be positive or negative yet.
Yeah, it's also very funny how Perfecto, last time he played, he was on Cloud9 with Electronic, and that was a disaster. And now they're going to reunite on VP. I don't know if much has changed, really, for it to be a success now. Their supporting cast has changed. So let's see. Again,
I think Flit's really good.
Yeah.
Fame is a bit hit and miss at the moment.
Yeah, Flame has been its best when they won the major, it feels like.
Yeah.
He has struggled to...
You know, he's only been at 3 majors or something, Yanko. I couldn't quite believe it.
Yeah, I think, well, that was his first one in Rio.
Rio?
If
Yes.
I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, you know.
So this was his 4th major this time around.
Yeah,
It's
and he's had to
crazy, I
change
think.
roles and positions, so I don't know. We'll see what they do next season. But yeah, this is the we said that ever since Electronic joined VP, it was his sort of last opportunity at Tier 1 CS, you know.
Yep, so he's
Okay.
got another 6 months at least.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Not very rapid fire.
Yes,
Moving on.
Spirit
Really
targets
quick.
way.
Spirit targets way.
I think that's a good one. I really like Zweih. He obviously, if you look at his stats just from stage 3, they're not very good. But his stats from stage 1 and stage 2, the type of positions that he's playing on these extremities on the CT and the T sides, he's active. He really backs his aim. He's 17 years of age. I think that if you add him to Spirit in either Zontic's or Magic's positions, I think probably more Magic's positions, I would say. But in some of these roles, it's going to give options to Chopper to be able to call around. Because right now, as we know, Shiro doesn't go for opening picks. It's really just donk. And then it's on the other side of the server. Are there going to be other ways back into these rounds, right? Once the pack either has a success or it doesn't. So I think Zweih is a really cool pickup. And they do need to make a change. We all knew they were going to take this 6-month period to see if they could win the next major with the current constellation of the team. There was even thoughts about them changing after Shanghai. But I think they did the right thing. They stuck to the roster. They made it to the top 8. And now they should make a change. So I think Zweih really impressed
You
me.
think they did the right thing? You're joking?
By sticking with the
Yeah.
roster? If I was in their position, I would have done the same thing.
Nah, I would have changed.
I can only say that, we can only say that from being outside of it, but you won the major with that roster. You know the peak of that roster is winning the major. So I think they deserve the opportunity.
After Shanghai, I mentioned they should have the conversation if it's worth it. They should at least explore the idea. I'm not going to criticize them for standing pat or not, but it does feel very weird that they let such a prospect like Kyosuke go if they were going to make a change. And that would be the one area where, in retrospect, I think you could look back and point and say, if like Kyosuke turns out to be amazing, you could almost say that might have been the miss, would be not bringing him into the full lineup.
Yeah.
But that's only time will tell. Here's one. You guys ready for this one?
Ready.
Rare Adam signed trash to replace somebody.
Next.
It's a great line. It's a great headline, yeah.
It's a beautiful one. That's all I got about it either.
Yeah, we'll see. He's young. He's had 9-7 maps on HLTV or something like that. But changing somebody
I did not expect you to have anything to say about trash replacing somebody. I just like the headline.
should be a good thing. So let's wait and see. Hunter IGL for G2.
I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. I think it just depends on which player that they bring in. I think they need to get an aggressive rifler, right? So the rumor was xkaspersky. So another one of...
Well, they wanted nerds, but Liquid's not going to give him.
Yeah, well, Pat McCaffrey or whatever his name was, and now we've got xkaspersky. So we got all the anti-cheats fucking coming out of our ass at the moment. We've seen him on ENTs, right? We did get a little look at him at a Pro League season. He actually was part of the NIP Academy, right? So we got to see him then. Really quiet kid. He's the one that has that video where he goes to school and they're all like standing around giving him the round of applause, which was kind of weird. It kind of felt like a bit of a horror movie for some reason.
Like a Black Mirror episode.
Yeah,
because he didn't
strange
seem
as fuck.
excited. He didn't seem happy. He was just kind of there taking all the positive clapping.
Yeah.
on.
But I think he's a nice aggressive piece, and it would be good for Saw to be able to mold him and use him as they want. They need someone else to be aggressive alongside of Malbs. I'll be interested to see what type of positions Hunter takes up now, because they've obviously got it more as their like hard anchor. So I guess it means that Hunter is going to be less lurky. So, or maybe he still tries to play the lurky positions. I don't know. But Sampaius and Saw in the mix there. I don't dislike those rumors. I think like the only other player that I'd be trying to get in those aggressive roles. Well, actually, now that Flammus is available, well, I guess he's not available, but I think he should maybe join the conversation. Or Tania, but I don't think Heroic would want to let go of him because then you lose your core of Youngstar, LNZ, and Tania.
I really hope Flammus doesn't have to learn some stupid fucking lesson about signing a long-term contract and having to sit in contract jail at this stage in his career.
I
That'd be so
don't
sad.
think he'll be in jail. I think VP will be willing to, let him go for something reasonable. I think that's been the case for VP historically. That's just from the top of my head. But the G2 situation, Hunter, I think it's the best moment for him to make this switch if he ever was going to do it.
Yeah, we spoke about the England thing before.
Yeah, exactly. And with Saw as his coach, will help him a lot to sort of set everything up and kind of get through the ropes initially. So that can be exciting for G2, making some good moves. What about Taz's tweet on the way out calling HooXi a bitch?
Holy shit.
It was meant nicely, though. I don't think it was meant... But we've also spoken about HooXi being a negative Nancy before, right? And I think it was probably just that, right? Like, I think when he's calling him a bitch, it's like, hey, you just need to maybe have a little bit more mental toughness. Obviously, I'm reading between the lines here, and I could be way off. But
why would you put that in that tweet? Like, you're just like putting a tweet that you're leaving
If I had to guess, it would be like some kind of like an inside joke or relationship they had that I can't judge, having never seen them really interact in any kind of a situation that obviously looks like completely stupid and ridiculous when it's made public. It's probably one of those things that was meant to be like a jokey, endearing thing in his head when he typed it out and just looks ridiculous in a tweet, is my perspective of it.
Yeah, I hope we can get Taz on some analyst desks and maybe we can see if he can contribute to some of the conversations. And then you all need to stand on a box.
Oh, that would suck. I fucking hate those boxes. I'd just be short, man.
We'll see. I don't know. To me, it was just... I think it's just... Well, it's his first role as a coach in Tier 1. He's just sort of realizing you are better off being in the background, right? And when you are in the front, it's taking heat for the team. And not making headlines for any reasons outside of that, right? Like just drawing attention from the players and everything. But doing this is just completely unnecessary, right? Anything that you had between the two of you should have been sorted out behind closed doors ages ago, right? Like this just gives us shit to talk about and adds
Do you think
fuel
it's
to
from
the
a
fires.
negative perspective? You think it's a bad thing? What he meant in the tweet?
Acknowledging like something. I think he's just acknowledging what you talked about, that he was, negative and too down on himself and whatnot, right? Like,
I mean,
that's all
first and
all there is
foremost,
to it. But why would you? Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
The optics of a coach under fire calling his former IGL, who is also under fire, a bitch in a tweet is just not good. It's just, I mean, just out of the gate, the public optics of it is just like, this is stupid, which is also why I kind of discount it in my head, because I'm like, it's so ridiculously stupid that I can't even attribute meaning to it. Like it's just a dumb thing to put out there.
I feel like there's no malice there or anything. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too
I
don't think there's.
That's why I'm saying it had to have been like an inside joke, like just some fucking stupid relationship. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other rapid fire we got going on?
Well, we spoke a little bit about Kyosuke, but that was already kind of an open secret.
I feel
We
like
just
we've
didn't
been
know who it was
talking
gonna
about that
replace
all
him.
through the major as well, right?
Yeah. Outside of that, I guess there's nothing concrete about any of the other changes yet. So we'll just hold off on other episodes.
will
when
give us something to talk about for next week.
There's the simple reply on Twitter when someone asked him about FaZe, right? There's that one right there. So, I think if Simple doesn't play on FaZe, he probably doesn't play in the next season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of sad.
And I mean, just the last. This is kind of what I meant when I said like you're not doing yourself any favors by like stepping in these situations, not fully being prepared for the level of competition. Is if he had had a good playoffs, I guarantee FaZe. Well, I can't guarantee, but I imagine FaZe would have gone for him if they had gone like on a deeper run and he showed a little bit more.
I don't know. I think it's a money thing. I think trying to buy him from Navi, I don't think they can afford him.
I'll say this: I did hear little birdies of rumors going around that his contract should be over by the end of the year. So that might be an angle to it as well, where like why pay the buyout now if he's going to be a free agent towards the end of the second. But this is also where it gets interesting because if you're Simple and your contract ends, and again, I don't know if this is 100% true, and your contract ends like November, December. Like if you want to come back for the next year. Like this is where you need to be like grinding and showing that you want to come back, right? That the major.
Could he just stay on loan though? Then in that case, couldn't he just stay on loan then?
In theory, yeah. I don't know how the contracts would work, but yeah. But where's he? What team is he going to go to?
Well, FaZe could just loan him for the rest of the year.
Unless
they want to have a full rebuild, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's where it becomes weird. Like if they want to have a full rebuild, then Again, the obvious angle is keep Frozen, keep Carrigan, keep Elige, but I don't even know if that's the right move in itself.
Like, yeah, that feels like they have a ton to figure out before we know what they're going to be doing long term.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
I'm good to go if you guys are good.
Good to go?
We do an episode next week?
Yeah, why not?
We can. I'll be around.
Okay. Me too.
Yeah, all right.
Cool.
I guess we should say, and maybe should have started this out instead of my I have nothing and no comment. But thank you to everyone at the Austin Major who came and like said hi to us. There are a lot of people listening to the podcast. A lot of people said some nice things about the podcast. People even said some nice things about Janko, even though he wasn't there, which was crazy. But just want to thank everyone who stopped up to either chat or I and mentioned something cool about the podcast, helping it get you through a work day or a drive to and from. It was fucking cool. Always is.
Yeah. No, it's really quite strange that obviously you can see that the viewer count on how many people watch the podcast or whatever, but to have people come up to you and say, "Man, I fucking love the podcast," like that's such a strange feeling, and it's cool that a lot of people enjoy listening to us talk about Counter-Strike. So that's really quite cool, and everybody in Austin was great. Everyone in Dallas is usually great too, but everybody in Austin was fantastic. Like a lot of interaction. I think I apologized on the other episode when we were doing with Flom about fucking the queues getting shut down and stuff. So yeah, it is what it is. And hopefully we're back out in the States sometime soon and we can do another event. But yeah, we'll do some more episodes, I guess, for this off season.
Yeah, and we'll get some sponsors in. We'll bring up the production value.
Oh, we got scolded by Flom for like fucking 2.5 hours on how stupid we are.
Okay.
It was actually fun though. It was like
so me and Flom are on the same page then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess.
It felt very personal, but it was like personal. It was kind of just like, how have you fucking morons made it this far without doing any of the things that you need to be doing? And we were kind of like, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
We were like,
and I just
fair.
want to add that the fact that all these people were nice to you in Austin, in person and everything is not going to save them from the ban hammer if they've been saying stupid shit in the Discord. It's coming. We'll all wield one. Chad's one is going to be the biggest.
Yeah. If I can, yeah. I'll get around to it. All right, let's get out of here.
See ya.
GG's.
Goodbye.